All right, I call to order the Board of Trustees regular meeting for June 23rd, 2026 at 6 p.m. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all. All right. Can I get a roll call, please, Madam Clerk?
Supervisor File.
Here.
Clerk Newbeck here. Treasurer Brown.
Here.
Trustee Hayward.
Here.
Trustee Morocco.
Here.
Trustee Nalamathu. Here. And Trustee Tedder is absent this evening. We have a quorum.
Great. All right. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda approved. Board and public announcement. Board members or individuals in the audience may make a statement containing information about a recent or upcoming event. Do we have any from the audience? Please come up. I know you know this, but the center mic, name and address, please.
Sure.
Joette Coons, 9740 Reese Road, Clarkston, Michigan. Please excuse my printer. It was not partnering with me today for colors. I have been the chairman of the America 250, the Clarkston Independence Township America 250 committee for this year, well, since kind of last year. But one of our key events is the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence is what July 4th is all about, the signing of that declaration. So we decided it's a difficult piece of paper to read. So we decided that we would get 65 residents from our community. And supervisor, the clerk, Jim Tedder from the Rotary, Sam from Preservation Clarkston, we're part of that. But there are a lot of kids from the ages of 5 to almost 90. 65 of our friends, neighbors, and family. So I've given you, you can go to the Independence Television YouTube channel, and it's right there. You can see it. It'll say the Voices of Independence Township. It's about 14 minutes, 53 seconds. And it means something when you see other people read it. So I hope that you will do that. My thanks to John Elke for all his work. You know, you got people putting into sentence. And Katie Bowman's there. Sean Ryan, Gary Call, just a lot of different people, and a couple of 5-year-olds that are great that set it together. So please take a look at it, and I hope the whole community will take a look at it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the audience? Okay, it doesn't look like we have anybody online. Anybody at the board? Any comments? Announcement, I mean. No, she's going to do public comments. Announcements. Clerk Newbeck.
Absentee ballots went out today for those of you that have requested one or are on our perm ballot list. So they should be arriving in your mailboxes. They went late this afternoon, over 8,000 of them. So be on the lookout if you are one that has requested one. That's all I have.
Okay, great. Any other?
Our biggest weekend is this weekend, Independence Fest, and there's been a lot of chatter online about people wondering when fireworks and all are, so ours are this Saturday at 10 p.m. at Clintonwood.
Great. Anyone else? Nope. Okay, then I'll close the board public announcements. The next item is public comments. After being recognized by the chair, individuals in the audience may address the township board. Speakers must go to the podium in the middle here and identify himself or herself. limiting their comments to no more than 5 minutes. I will let you know when you're at 4, so you can kind of wrap things up. And at this point in time, usually there's not an interaction between the board. It's just your chance to come up and make some comments. Do I have anybody in the audience that would like to come up and make a public announcement? Yes, please come up.
Hello, my name's Deborah Penninger. I'm a resident of Independence Township, and I provided a handout to the board members. What I'm suggesting is that we propose a new Independence Township ordinance for the restriction of short-term home rentals and pool rentals. And the background here is regarding the issues that Birmingham, Michigan is currently experiencing with regard to short-term home rentals and pool rentals. There have been 2 incidents recently, one being April 11th, 2026, where a home was rented via Airbnb for a party, and there were shots fired, resulting in 4 homes and 2 vehicles with bullet holes in them. And in June 16th, 2026, a homeowner rented out their pool to a third party. A few hundred people showed up driving over other homeowners' front yards. They were blocking driveways, driving over neighbors' lawns, and they were also displaying sexually exhibit behavior in front of minor children. And so some of the reasons for requesting short-term restrictions on short-term rentals for homes and pools. The pools would be that when private homeowners rent out their pools for short-term periods of hours or a few days, there are no security controls regarding the number of people who attend, which may easily get out of control in a single-family neighborhood within Independence Township. So referring back to the June 16th issue, when compared to a commercial pool, private pools are not regulated by state or local health departments relative to water chemistry, physical barriers, bather safety, drain entrapment prevention, lifeguard mandates, or signage. Further, private pools aren't required to be inspected as commercial pools are to ensure that all pool equipment is working properly. With respect to homes, when private homeowners rent out their homes for short periods of time, so let's say a few days, the homeowner can't control the number of people that show up. So that's referencing the April 11th example, where people showed up and began firing multiple shots into the homes and the surrounding homes as well. Commercial buildings also have an occupancy load that's enforced by the fire marshal, but private homes aren't regulated as such by the fire marshal. So they're under no safety reviews with respect to CO2 or smoke detectors. And also subdivision HOAs within Independence Township have differing deed restrictions. So some may allow that you can rent out your home for a year. Others may say you can rent it out for a week or a few days. So that's why we need to be proactive and get ahead of this before all these issues come into Independence Township. Some of the other reasons why we need to get ahead of this and be proactive: there's the potential for damage to other property owners in the event of excessive crowds. Emergency vehicles will be unable to respond in the event of an emergency. Potential for noise and disturbing the peace complaints. Also for the potential for an unauthorized firearms to be brought into the township. Potential for negative impact to minor children witnessing inappropriate sexual behavior. Also for potential increased safety hazards within the township. And also potential to lower our property values within the township. And also potential for image and reputational damage for our township. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me, real quick, can I get your address, please?
Yes. 5772 Belshire Lane here in Clarkston.
Okay, thank you. Yes, please come up to the mic. Name and address, please.
Hello, I'm Brian Posby, 6108 Lake Walden Drive. I'd like to discuss for a couple minutes the effort that this committee, Open Space Committee, that's been in existence about 3 to 4 years from what I understand. I recently was appointed about 8 months ago and have had the pleasure to work with a lot of folks that are concerned with open space. We have some great leadership with Joe Suter and Bill Scarborough and Joette and some other folks that are helping out. So I was recently assigned to investigate a couple of open parcels that are kind of near and dear to my heart. They're within my sight line. And I've done some work on that and initially reported back to the committee. But I'm a little bit concerned about how this type of information goes from the committee and gets engaged with you folks, with the board. So I guess that needs to be, worked out. But we've got our objectives to help with the tree canopy buffers, the ones that are left from all the dense commercial development going on. Yes, Mr. Hayward, I'm a bit of a tree hugger. The residents still desire to have a unique rural feel. I'm not going to use the word character, right? Because nobody wants to hear that word. But a lot of residents, including myself as a 33-year resident here in the township, still feel like we have some rural areas that need to be identified and protected and planned out accordingly. And it's easy, I think, to blur the line a little bit with what Planning Commission does and others like that. But I think this Open Space Committee is really important. I think it deserves respect. I think it deserves attention. There was an update recently, but I don't have a clue of what the action items that came out of that. Everybody sat pretty much quiet while the presentations were going on. So that's kind of the closing point or question is, how does the Open Space Committee effectively engage with the board to accomplish what the residents of Independence Township desire for the future of open space preservation? So thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I'm sorry, not questions. Any other comments from the public? No? Okay, we'll close it locally. Anybody online? No? Okay, I'll close it online. On the board, anybody on the board have any public comments? Trustee Morocco?
I just want to let everybody know that the flag started going up today on Dixie Highway as part of the DDA identification of the district. The approved Clarkston, Independence Township, America 250 flags. Those of you that aren't avoiding Dixie Highway due to the curb work, you get a chance to get over there. It's going to make a big difference and really let people know that they're in Independence Township. I did want to mention, we had a lot of help from Dave McKee from DPW. Mike Spiegel's been keeping an eye on it for us. And David Gittens, the chairman of the DDA, worked really hard on getting that done. So.
Okay. If there's no other ones, I have one. I had a resident, a Mr. Price. Is he here by any chance tonight? No? Okay. He and I had a couple emails back and forth. He sent one that he would like me to read into the minutes. Before I do that, I just kind of want to point out, clarify two factual points so that the board and the public have some accurate information. First and foremost is that Independence Township has not provided funding to private roads, whether gravel or paved. No township funds have been distributed for the maintenance, repair, or improvement of private roads. Second, the Board of Trustees recently approved an additional $200,000 specifically to assist dirt road improvements. This action was taken to address concerns regarding gravel and dirt roads and demonstrate the board's recognition that these roads present unique challenges for residents. Mr. Price raises an important policy decision regarding long-term funding mechanisms for private road maintenance. He suggests regarding the use of special assessment districts for gravel roads maintenance is a worthy of consideration and discussion by the board. It is important that the discussion be based on accurate information regarding the township, current practice, and recent actions. I do appreciate the fact that Mr. Price did take the time to look at this, do a little bit of research, and sent it off. Here's his letter. Sorry. Greetings from Tom Price, 8003 Crescent Drive. John F. Kennedy said in 1960, America doesn't have good roads because we are rich. We are rich because we have good roads. He wasn't referring to local private roads, of course, but in local context, property values and quality of life are affected by the condition of all roads. That government's role is to enable improvement for all residents. When I saw the special assessment district agenda item, I felt the need to bring to the board's attention a critical need that could easily be provided for that affects a good number of residents of Independence. The ability of some Independence Townships, older neighborhoods to reliably collect funds for improvements and maintenance is barely functional at best, with only around 60% collection typically. The problem has been beautifully solved up north in Borman Township, where my cottage is located. We filed the same signature gathering procedures for SADs as you require here. Got approval, and now the gravel road maintenance is paid for by every affected owner on our property tax bills. The roads have been excellent since. Here in Independence, I am only hearing discussions regarding repaving previously paved roads, which does nothing in the future to help those of us on gravel roads. I've even heard comments from board members in the past, the gravel roads are none of our business, but safe passage of emergency vehicles, good water management, and supporting neighborhoods to become better is indeed the business of local government. These beautiful, quaint, older neighborhoods with homes selling in the 300s have roads in very poor condition because of their inability to collect from every property owner. As a neighborhood consisting of mostly older retirees and young families with huge mortgage payments, many are unlikely to sign on to the added huge cost of paving to our household budgets. We just need reliable and consistent funding for improvements and year-round maintenance. With no way to collect from non-payers, things are deteriorating quickly. With the increased occurrence of heavy downpours, ice storms now every winter, and fewer people paying every year, older neighborhood gravel roads are in a treacherous state and could use a little bit of the same help that the board so generously offered to older paved private neighborhoods. Didn't do that. We pay the same rate as paved areas and opportunity taxes for operations of the township, and this is not a big task. Please do what Boardman Township does and give us a way by allowing SADs for improvement of gravel roads to get our road maintenance costs onto the property tax bill so that everyone has to pitch in. Gravel road property owners also deserve to have good roads in such a beautiful area. Thanks for listening. Tom Price, Sunny Beach to homeowner. All right. I will close public comments at this point in time. Next thing we're going to do is have presentations. Before we begin, obviously, we have two presentations tonight, one of which is going to be going through and kind of giving township bond, understanding bonds 101. For that, we brought in Mr. Brzezinski and his company to go through and do a presentation on that. It ties in nicely because part of what we're also doing in presentations tonight, we're going to be listening to each one of the trustees. We're assigned or picked a capital improvement project. At some point in the future, bonding could very well be a mechanism to fund this, so I thought it would be a good idea for not everybody in the audience, but the people on the board too, to get a basic understanding of how bonding works. So with that, do you want to come up and come to the podium, please? Introduce yourself, say your name and that, and we do have the PowerPoint, but it's going to be over here. You can go to the podium over here.
Okay.
The reason why is because you'll have the PowerPoint should be up.
Okay. So I am Bobby Benzinski from Benzinski and Company. With me is Stephen Haydock from our firm. The supervisor, how do I get the PowerPoint?
No, I'm wondering the same thing here.
Oh.
This one? No.
Did you send
Parks.
it?
I don't know what it's called.
Yeah.
Oops, I'm sorry.
You're good. Where did he put it here? There we go.
Okay. And then just click this down here.
So the first thing I have to say is that your supervisor put this together, and I have to commend him for
Oh,
doing a
you're making fun of
fantastic
me.
job. I reviewed it quickly, and it is very upfront, very explanatory, very understanding. So I commend you for that, Supervisor. I'm not going to go through each slide unless you want me to.
No.
Okay. So first of all, as the slide says, bonding is a way to enhance your capital improvement plan. When you bond, you're doing it for your larger infrastructure capital improvements that you need over time. It's kind of like when you're young, you want to buy a house, but you can't pay cash for it. If you save money every year, by the time you try to buy that house, it costs 3 times what it would have cost you. So you go out, you get a mortgage. You might do the same thing for a car. And that's kind of what you're doing. So your infrastructure, which can be anywhere from water, sewer, streets, recreational facilities, township facilities such as Township Hall, fire station, police station, things of that nature you can borrow for under Michigan law. Michigan law allows you to borrow with or without a vote as a township. And each municipality in the state of Michigan has various bonding laws that they have to comply with. So as a township, the township can vote bonds, which then would allow the township to levy a tax over and above its charter limitation to pay for the bonds. And in order to do that, you would have to have an election. The election would have to pass by a simple majority. And you could then issue bonds and levy the tax for the debt service requirements on those bonds. There is also a way to issue bonds without a vote. They're called capital improvement or limited tax general obligation bonds. The term is kind of the same. And you
bonds, which I think we touch on a little later, those would have to be voted, and those create a new tax. And that tax is unlimited in nature, meaning that you can levy whatever millage you need to generate the necessary revenue to pay the debt service on the bonds each year. So if the taxable value in the township goes down, your millage can go up to whatever it needs to be to generate the revenue needed for the following year's debt service. So all these other bond issues that we're talking about don't result in new taxes or new millages, where, I mean, you could look at it as special assessment district. It's a new source of revenue to those in the district that are getting a benefit from the work being done, but there's no new millage for any of these, except for unlimited tax general obligation bonds. So,
we've kind of covered that.
yep.
You want to talk about full faith and credit?
So, generally, all of these bond issues are going to require the township's full faith and credit. Township would adopt a resolution pledging such, but that's the security behind the bonds in all these instances. I mean, if you do a special assessment district, the bonds will be secured by the revenues of the special assessment district. However, the market is really going to require the full faith and credit of the township behind them as well. So if the revenues in the special assessment district weren't there for some reason, the fallback would be the limited tax general obligation full faith and credit of the township, meaning the township would make it an obligation to pay from whatever available sources it had to meet the debt service requirements of the bondholders.
These are very common financing mechanisms. The bond market understands the Michigan taxing system, so they accept these. The rating agencies, which is the credit rating agencies that put a rating on them, which would be equivalent to a credit rating that an individual would have, but instead it's a letter, it's an alpha system versus a numerical system. And they all understand it, so it's not uncommon for this type of financing to take place.
So this is what I touched on earlier. All the bond issues that we talked about, with the exception of revenue bonds, would be limited tax general obligation bonds, except for unlimited tax, which require voter approval because you're creating a new tax. And that's really for projects that you don't have revenue to do or very large projects. We see it for all sorts of different projects, to be honest with you, but it's really larger projects, you know, that you need a dedicated revenue source for.
Special assessment bonds, received a letter from somebody that talks about doing a special assessment district. If you did it for roads, water, or sewer, those that benefit from that would pay that. That assessment is payable over time. It can range from anywhere from 2 years to 30 years, depending on the useful life of the improvement. Roads are generally limited at 10 to 15, depending on what you're using, whether you're going to use asphalt or if you're going to use concrete. You just need an engineer to certify. The assessments are payable over time with interest on them, and the interest rate is tied to the bond issue. Michigan law allows you to add 1% above the average interest rate on the bonds to the taxpayers or the benefited properties. This provides additional cash flow should people pay their assessments off, should there be some delinquencies that you may have to cover for a short period of time while it goes through the delinquent tax process. So that's how the special assessments work. Revenue bonds, they're used for utilities, water, sewer. Michigan amended its bonding law in 2001, which allowed them to issue what we call capital improvement bonds or general obligation limited tax bonds. Generally, we will do this. Revenue bonds are the most expensive type of financing, because when you do revenue bonds, it's secured only by the user rates and charges of that system. You have to provide a debt service reserve in case the use of that system slows down for some reason or is not as used as much as you thought it would be. And you also have to provide additional rate covenants, which means that you have to set your rates at least 10% higher than what your anticipated debt service is on an annual basis. And revenue bonds do not carry the township's full faith and credit, so they sell for a slightly higher interest rate. So we generally, if at all possible, do not recommend revenue bonds unless there's a certain reason to have a revenue bond.
Oftentimes with smaller communities, one of those reasons to do revenue bonds would be they are not subject to the municipality's debt limit, which is broadly 10% of its SEV. So if you have a small community and doesn't have the capacity under that debt limit that's governed by the state, 10% of SEV, you can do revenue bonds and they don't count towards that debt limit because they're not secured by the full faith and credit of the municipality and only the rates of the system. So oftentimes, smaller community, you'll end up doing significant rate increases to be able to pay for the bond issue, the revenue bond issue.
Another example of revenue bonds are used is if you had a heavy water or sewer user that you could lay that rate on. And because
like a large industrial user or something like
something
that.
like that where they're the major user and you can lay that rate onto them and not worry about the taxpayers as much. As I said earlier, bonds can be issued for the useful life of what you're financing, but Michigan law limits to 30 years as the maximum under Michigan law. So you would be limited to 30 years in most cases with the exception of roads, which would be limited to the engineer certifying the useful life, whether it's 10, 12, 15 years, 20 years tops probably. You have to bond for capital improvements. You have to bond for an asset. You cannot bond for ongoing operating expenses. It has to be a depreciable asset to issue bonds. The approvals, General obligation bonds do not require public hearings. Special assessment bonds require public hearings. So depending on what type of bond issue you're looking at, whether it's just the township board adopting 2 or 3 resolutions, or the township board adopting 2 or 3 resolutions and holding a public hearing, if you were to vote the bonds, the township board would approve the ballot language. The ballot language would have to include the dollar amount of bonds you want to sell, the maximum duration of the bond issue, the purpose of the bond issue, and you would have to state the anticipated first year's millage rate and the average annual millage rate for the life of the bonds. Most bond councils in the state of Michigan require that each type of facility be voted as a separate ballot. So you couldn't say, can we build a new township hall, and in another location build a new fire station, and then build a library somewhere else and have one ballot question. You would probably most likely have to have 3 separate ballot questions. You want to take that?
So generally, the issuance process, we would get involved early, ideally, us, bond counsel, talk to the municipality about the project that it's looking to fund. Kind of develop a financing plan from there. Once the project's identified, costs are identified, usually we always we start the process with a cost estimate and then develop the financing process around when bids will be received for the project. Because one thing you don't want to do, you don't want to borrow too much money and be paying interest on money you don't need, and you don't want to have too little money because you won't have enough money to do the project. So bond counsel will also tell you, can speak a little more in depth on this, but if you borrow too much money, you can only earn interest on the borrowed money up to the rate that you're paying on the bonds, because the IRS does not want you to use tax-exempt money to earn money. So there are spend-down requirements. You have to spend the money, within 3 years is the general rule of thumb. Otherwise, you could potentially have to rebate some of the earned interest back to the government. But that's, a little in the weeds there. Once the costs are identified, bids are taken, we can size the bond issue appropriately. We would prepare an official statement, which is an offering document or a prospectus, to market the bonds. We would request the rating from a rating agency, either S&P or Moody's. The township currently has a AA+ rating outstanding with S&P. AA+ is the second highest credit rating you can have as a municipality. There's only one notch higher, which is a AAA. And last I checked, there's only about 20, give or take, municipalities in the state that have a AAA. So a AA+ is excellent. Go through the rating process, prepare that official statement. You would adopt the bond authorizing resolution once the construction bids come in and you know the size of the project based on those bids. We would set a bond sale date, and on the day that the bonds are set to be sold, we would receive bids from large financial institutions, Robert W. Baird, J.P. Morgan Chase, Raymond James, institutions like that would buy all the bonds or none. You're not getting multiple orders for pieces of the bond issue. One large institution is going to buy them all, and then they would turn around and sell them, and residents could buy them from their brokers or something like that. We would review those bids, make a recommendation to the township, and then about 3 weeks after that, you would close and have all the bond proceeds at once. So it's not like a drawdown loan or anything like that. You receive all the proceeds at once. You have anything to add to that?
No, you cover everything. The timeline is, varies on the type of issue. Obviously, a voted bond issue takes more time because of the election process. You're required by state law. You can only hold an election 3 times in a year, so you gotta pick your date. We don't make those rules. The clerk doesn't make those rules, state makes them, so you can't blame her. You know, like Stephen said, we always want to have construction bids in hand because you don't want to borrow too much money or you don't want to borrow enough. So the timing kind of reflects where you stand in terms of being able to secure construction bids on these projects. And as you know now, it's, you know, generally it's 30 to 45 days. You put the ad out, the architect or the engineer puts the ad out, you get the bids back, and then we can sell bonds and deliver bonds generally within 60 to 75 days after you receive construction bids, if you've adopted your resolutions. I think we kind of talked about the team. You know, it's the township administration, the township trustees do the legislative action, which could be 2 or 3 resolutions depending on type of financing. You would have bond counsel, which is the lawyers. They're the ones that are saying that the bonds are legally issued and that the interest on the bonds is exempt from taxation when investors buy them. That's the key important issue of bond counsel, and there's a whole bunch of rules that Stephen kind of alluded to that must be followed. So, you know, that's why you bring in a special bond counsel. And they're, you know, I don't know how many, there's probably 50, 75 nationwide that do this. So it's not something that everybody does. It's very specialized. Debt capacity, you want to talk about their debt capacity since we do have it? It's not in the slides, but we did our own, I don't know if you handed that out, did we?
I didn't, sorry.
Okay.
But I wish I would have now.
So, like I said before, the general overall debt limit of municipalities in the state of Michigan, 10% of SEV. So the township currently, under that limit, has a available capacity of $329,245,000. Not that the township could ever afford $329 million worth of bonds, but based on its very large SEV, that's what the limit is under the law. For special assessment bonds, you can do up to 3% of your SEV per year with a 12% limit. So that 12% limit's $401 million, and the 3% per year cap is just over $100 million. Those capital improvement bonds that Bobby mentioned earlier, they're limited tax general obligation bonds that can be used for pretty much anything that you want, as long as you're using available revenues to pay the debt service. Those can be issued without a vote, and because of that, they have their own debt limit underneath the 5% or the 10% limit, and it's 5% of the township's SEV, which would be about $165 million. So the township does not have very much debt outstanding at all. You have, for direct debt that's directly attributable to the township, you have just over $5 million. I believe both of those are related to water and sewer projects. And then you have some indirect debt through the county, which is all related to the Oakland County, Oakland-Macomb Interceptor Drain,
Right.
and that's another $5 million. But for a municipality with an SEV of over $3 billion, the township has extraordinarily low amounts of debt, which is a great thing. So, I mean, I think that's something the township should be proud of, along with its AA+ rating. Trying to think if I need to cover anything else.
No, we've kind of talked
Yeah.
about this. Obviously, your credit rating, like we said, is very good. It's there's factors. that the rating agencies use. One is the state in which you're in and the makeup framework of the state constitution, basically. The economics of where you're at, your financial condition of the township, which is in very good financial shape, and, you know, your revenue flexibility. So, you know, AA plus, like he said, is the second highest rating that you can receive. There's only about 20 in the state of Michigan that have the AAA rating. So, you know.
Yeah, I mean, they look at demographics, the economy, management practices and policies, and the financials. So the only two of those that you really have a lot of control over would be, you know, financials to an extent, your practices, and your policies and procedures. You know, do you have a fund balance policy, things like that, that helps with the rating. But I know I keep saying it, AA plus is very good, so you don't have a whole lot to worry about.
You covered the next one pretty much.
No, yeah. There we go. Yeah.
Just, it's kind of how we roll. You know, the financial risk, you know, economy, that's really what it is, operations. You know, Independence has always been a strong financial community. You don't get a AA plus rating because one year you did well. It's based on history and long-term longevity, excuse me, of being strong financially, and the economy being in Oakland County helps you, you know, versus a rural community or county. You know, you may not be rated as well if you were in a rural county. So, best practices, you know, I can't argue with any of these. I can't. You know, you're doing most of them, all of them, as far as I know and that we hear and what we've looked at. You know, the first one, match debt term to asset life, that's pretty much required by state law. But, you know, that is a good practice. I mean, you don't want to borrow for roads 20 years that are only going to last you 10 because you're paying for them for 20. And I know that everybody says, well, you know, roads last 10 years, but you don't refine it, or you don't redo them in 10. Well, sewers last for 50 and you don't necessarily redo them. You know, sometimes they'll last 75, 80 years. It just depends.
You know, there's a lot of stuff in the ground that's 100 years old, but no one wants it to be that way.
Darn small buttons.
Like I said, my phone. I don't know.
There you go, Dan.
Yeah, I'm impressed that an attorney knows how to use it. Because I don't. That's why I have a grandson. Sorry about that. So I don't know how much you want us to talk about the public safety building, the senior center, and the SAD program.
No, I think we're good at this point.
Okay, you know, so, and I do agree with the trustee decision framework. I mean, that's what you have to do. It's up to you. And, you know, we are here along with your bond counsel to work with you to facilitate what you want to move forward and how you want to and when you want to.
Okay, so normally we don't interact on these presentations, we just kind of give them and move on, but I think this is an important topic and an important tool that could potentially be used for every one of the individuals up here. So I would like to put you guys on the spot and allow any of the trustees or board members up here to ask any questions if they have any.
I want to stand here so I can see what's
Yep.
on the end. I felt like I was.
Clerk Newbeck.
What is the process to apply to raise our rating? How long does that take? And do we, a couple things around that. Is that something you would facilitate us through? And the township's been the same for a long time, and I think it would behoove us, especially if this is the path we're moving, to possibly even better our rate, if that's possible, to even try to accomplish that and find even more savings that way. But
So the rating process at ties to a debt issuance. And the higher or the lower your rating, the more they review you. So if you have a very high rating, they review you more often, and if you have a low rating, they review you more often. But they generally review you approximately every 2 years. They may review a AA plus every 18 months, because it's a AA, it's a high rating, you want to make sure that rating is still there, and you haven't done anything financially to change that rating. You know, you haven't drawn down all your fund balance and all of that.
And sometimes they do reach out to you. S&P may reach out to, administration at the township and want to set up a call and basically have kind of a light version of a full rating call. I don't see that as often as them just kind of doing a Google search, looking at the township's audit that's available, online, and reviewing any other information they can publicly get without really informing the township. I don't have it written on here, the last review, but I don't remember it. I could look it up to figure out when the township was last reviewed. But the rating relates to the 2018 bond issue. So my guess is it's been reviewed at least once or twice since 2018. But I don't often see a lot of rating movements with just their reviews every few years. It's usually when you're going out to do a new debt issuance and you have to go through the full rating process again, that maybe. But I also will say S&P changed its rating methodology and criteria of how it calculates its ratings in September of 2024. And since then, and since the ARPA money within the state has, been spent and dried up, there's been a lot more rating downgrades than upgrades. Now, I don't suspect that the township is at risk of a rating downgrade.
Can I interrupt you for 1
Yeah.
second, please? Treasurer Brown, when was the last rating?
My recollection, when we went from up to a AA plus, was somewhere around 13 or 14, and myself and the clerk and the supervisor, we reached out to Standard & Poor's. And I don't know whether the reaching out facilitated additional efforts on their part, but we went through they did ask questions, and we did provide additional information, and our rating was increased around that time period.
Okay.
So there's nothing that stops us from reaching out to them now and saying, hey, we'd like to get a
No,
look at it.
but they generally, you could ask them for a review of your current outstanding rating, but they're not gonna go through the full process. I mean, their fees are generally, pretty high to go through the rating process for a new debt issuance. But, I certainly could talk to people at S&P and see kind of what the process would be to get a review, if that's something that the township would be interested in, without, going through the full debt issuance process. But you would
We
need
did
to
that
go-
on our own, though. We weren't getting debt, and we didn't use anybody to do it.
Okay. I'll
It's a little different, but.
Yeah, I can take a look and see when the last review was done, or
And the first question that they're going to ask is, when does the township anticipate issuing additional debt? And if we tell them, my guess is if we tell them 6 months to a year from now, they're gonna say, we'll wait and review it then. Yeah, and like Stephen said, their fees, I'm not trying to, make fun of them, but belittle them, but their fees have gone up quite a bit of money in the last several years, and they want fees they've changed their process, where it used to be that if you applied for a rating, they gave you a rating, and then for some reason didn't sell the bonds, you didn't have to pay for the rating. Well, now you have to pay 75% of the fee if you don't sell the bonds. So they've changed their billing process and their fees, so.
So just to be clear, are you saying that if and when we go through that process, they would review us at that point?
Yes,
And-
they would.
Oh, yeah.
So then-
Every bond issue needs its own rating.
Review and rating.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
thank
we
you.
just can't take the AA plus, slap it on the front of the official
Okay.
statement. without having a review by S&P. To use that rating, they have to go through their analytic process. And you would have to pay a fee, which we would include in the sizing of the bond issue.
Each
And-
bond would be a fee.
Yes, each.
Okay, thank you.
And we would assist you with the questionnaire, we would be on the call with you. We would provide them all the documents, with the exception of township policies that you have, and we would, have you forward them to them, but all of the legal documents and the official statement, that would all be supplied by us. We would help you with the questionnaire, we'd be on the call.
Okay, thank you so much.
And they do, a Teams call or Zoom call, so.
Any other questions? Trustee Morocco.
So if, we're sitting on a bunch of cash right now, so if we decide that we want to pay for of 3/4 of our capital improvements with cash, which would, whether that's to your statement that something dramatic happened, so I guess I'd like to know how significant it is if the township's sitting on, let's say 15 to 18 million in cash, we decide to use it for capital improvements, and now all of a sudden, we're only sitting on, a 5 million in cash. What is the effect that's gonna have on, if you're trying to go for a rating increase at the same time that you've dramatically just changed the status quo that the township's maintained for all of these years? What's the impacts of that?
The rating agency does like to see a significant reserve. And they do like to see a policy stating, we want it to, our reserves to be, 20% or 30%.
Of what?
Of a year's expenditures.
Okay.
That's what we are now.
Yeah.
Do you have a policy that
Yes.
that specifically states
And we're
that?
significantly above that in the general fund. So spending a bunch wouldn't take us below the 20%.
Yeah, that,
And
I,
then we're not affected.
yeah.
And if you've set aside this money for capital improvements, we would explain that in the rating process, that we've set aside, we being the township, when I would say we, would
Get it.
explain to the rating agencies that this money has been set aside by current board and previous boards to use it for capital improvements, and now we're paying down this by, instead of borrowing 10 million, we're gonna borrow 7 million. I mean, I'm just making numbers up, but.
So was I, but, I mean,
Okay.
somewhat, but I wanted to, that was my whole point, is that I don't want to go to try to boost our rating, and then we immediately make a dramatic change in our assets that we're sitting on, and then that was for naught. So I just want to know what the impact that would have, if any, or if we immediately went for a rating increase, which I don't know how much savings you get, from AA+ to triple A is probably pretty minimum, I would imagine, in comparison to sitting on a bunch of cash, not just change the status quo. So that was
The
where
other-
I was going with my question.
The one thing that Benzinski and company would work with the administration on is, how much cash do we put in? If we have a $10 million project, do we put $1 million, do we put $3 million, $5 million? What does that number do? Does that number maintain your reserves as required by your policies, but take that debt service down so it's very manageable? And that's what we would assist you in doing. It's a process that, we can run those scenarios and say, okay, you've got your 20% fund balance, and you've still got excess money, but you're gonna spend down this because this is what you plan to use it for.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Nope. Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so with that little bit of knowledge, let's get into the CIP. I just want to kind of frame this so we're all on the same page. We're going to go through and talk about the capital improvement presentation from each of the different members here. Earlier this year, each member of the board selected a project they believe warranted an evaluation as part of Independence Township's long-term planning efforts. Each elected official was paired with a township staff member or someone to assist them with research, information gathering, and project development. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to introduce those projects to the board and the public, explain why they're being studied, identify the project teams involved, and provide a preview of the work that will be completed over the coming future, months, I should say. It is important to note that no action is being taken tonight or is being requested. No funding is being approved, no projects are being authorized, no decisions are being made tonight. The presentations are intended solely to begin a public conversation regarding potential future opportunities and to provide transparency into the planning process. To ensure fairness and consistency, each project team has been asked to follow a standardized presentation, so they're all going to look pretty much the same, and limit their remarks to approximately 5 minutes. The goal is to keep the focus on the merits of the project itself rather than who is better at graphics art. As the project moves forward, additional research, stakeholder input, financial analysis, operation assistance, and assessments, implementation, consideration will be evaluated. Several of these initiatives may also have relationships to one another, making collaboration between the project teams an important part of the process. The board and the public will receive more comprehensive presentations in August and going forward, including alternatives, costs, funding opportunities, timelines, and recommendations for consideration. Tonight is just simply the first step in all of this. But with that, we'll begin the 2026 capital improvement plans. It was, I'm not sure, we have an order here, and the order just, I think it was kind of more based on who turned in what, when, with the exception of mine, I just put it at the end for simplicity purposes. So the very first one is is being chaired by Trustee Tedder. Tedder could not make it tonight for valid reasons, and so his staff lead was the employee that was helping him with it, is Jennifer Angus, and so she gets to come up here all by her lonesome and walk us through the new what she's looking for her CIP project. And there we go. Now all the slides are going to be the same, so that way, at least from a run thing. Again, it's 5 minutes, probably very little of any interaction here from the board. Go.
So, thank you. I'm Jennifer Angus. I'm the supervisor for the Senior Community Center here. And yes, unfortunately, Trustee Tedder couldn't be here this evening, so I'll walk you through this presentation.
Can you speak up, please?
Pardon?
Can you speak a little louder?
Is that a little bit better?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I want to thank the board for this opportunity and appreciate being here this evening. And I'll just go, no, this is not where I want to be.
Jennifer, if you click down here on that little icon down there at the bottom.
There we go. So there's been quite a bit of talk about, this is the first time we've been able to get in front of the board, and I appreciate that opportunity, but going through just the slides and the format that was given to us, there were some key topics that we wanted to touch on, and I'm sorry, this is going to be kind of weird for me because I can't see you two people, and I apologize for that.
That's okay, I'm not looking at you.
Okay, so it's just, for me, it's kind of odd. So I digress.
I know it's weird being up there, you can't really see everybody. But.
So we know right now that the demographic information for the township shows that approximately 40% of our residents can utilize the senior center right now. They're eligible to come in for programming services, and then also our space functions as a rental opportunity, so it is available to the general public at large as well. So our community benefit there in going forward is to have a space, a modern senior center that will promote a strong community focus, that supports independent aging in place, expands our social services, which have increased dramatically over the last 2 years, 3 years, and we know that we serve as a point of wellness and addressing social isolation issues. So we do have that strong community benefit factor in place, and what this means is that the need for a new space is to meet our growing population. We know that we currently have seen an increase in the 65-plus population over the last 15 years or so, that's increased by about 64%. This is given, and then once again, I'm quoting SEMCOG data for Independence Township. So we've seen a significant ramp in increase in growth in our population. That's projected out for another 33% growth in population over up to, our projections go out to about 2050. So we're looking at an increase in our population by another 33% by 2050. The key here, and you see, is this projected increase of population by 176% in that 85 plus category. So residents that are going to be 85 plus. Right now, we're looking at that. This is the growing number of people that are going to be using our space coming up in that next period of years to 2050. So we really need to take that into consideration when we're evaluating what kind of space and what that's going to look like going forward, because we know right now our current space does not suit our needs. And the long-term value of that is we want to provide a space that will service us beyond that 2050 mark and go into the next 40 and 50 years, looking at how that space is going to suit the township's needs. We need that space to provide a multiple event functionality while we're assessing what's going to mean to suit our current needs, our future needs, and the demand of this vastly fast-growing population. And so our project team consists of Trustee Tedder, myself as the staff lead. We are very fortunate that we've been able to lean into our Senior Center Advisory Committee. We had put together previously, after numerous conversations, an ad hoc committee that consists of our president, Bill Kuntz, Ron Ritchie, and Bill Scarborough. We also have our nonprofit partner, the Friends of the Senior Center, which is an organization that is independently contributes to our operations and is a separate 501c3. I would be remiss in not acknowledging Springfield Township, the City of the Village of Clarkston, and Clarkston Community Schools, who also contribute community development block grant funding to us, and Clarkston Community Schools, who I'll touch a little bit later on that, but we do a lot of intergenerational programming opportunities with the schools at this point. Looking at our current operations, I touched on that our community center we know is undersized. We currently stand at about 4,500 square feet of program or usable space. That's not programmable space. So if we were to look at industry standards right now, and this is based on just industry standard numbers, 3 square feet for every senior person or every senior resident, that would be 60 plus. We have 9,000 people currently in the township. That would bring a building to, if we're according to industry standards, up to about 27,000 square feet. So you can see that little bit of a difference. I think that's that looks like a big differential. It is, and I don't think that, most senior centers operate at that industry standard, but if you were looking at that number, you can see that the current need for space and what we might look at for the future. We know that we are the fastest growing population segment, and we have been for the last 15 years. We know that number is increasing. And once again, so we're looking at how we currently serve the township is, we have about 40% of those people can currently come and see us, and qualify for our program. So we need to really keep that in mind as we're going forward. We've done needs assessments. We understand that our building is too small. There was a facility and programming assessment that was done in 2024 by AKA, and so we know that our existing space is not feasible to be expanded. We're inside of Clintonwood Park, and we're very limited with what we can do in that space because of the acquisition of the land was under a grant, and so it doesn't really provide the opportunity for us to enclose
Excuse me,
parkland.
Jennifer. You're at 5 minutes. And
Oh, I
know you
am?
got a couple more slides, so.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'll keep going fast. So our concept design is based on a 2.5 to 3 square foot planning range, taking us to a building size that could be potentially 3,000 or 30,000 square feet. We've identified amenities that we would like configured in there. We have identified a site plan in space. There's property that is owned by the township that is adjacent to the library in between the Clarkston Community Schools Administration and Early Learning Center. There's a preliminary recommendation of about 5 acres. We have had conversations with the schools about community partnerships and how they may provide us additional space in that area. They own an additional 30 acres there. Estimated construction costs right now, we're looking at about $10 to $12 million for a building, and that's based on a cost line between 325 to 450 square feet. Those numbers were pulled and are pretty in range with what the cost would be in our area. Our next steps are identifying, well, we know we have our data, but building out our data, a concept plan. We are currently scheduled to do some preliminary planning with AKA. We have confirmed a target size for our building, and we are prepared to start exploring funding strategies for it. So our key takeaways for our questions were our current facility, what problem are we solving? We know that our current facilities are not big enough, and that our population is going to be continuing to grow. We have some options. We have a new building projections number, and we know that we can't renovate, so we're looking at where we can build a new facility. Touched a little bit on our cost projections, and then these are just and once again, these are just project cost projections that I've listed. And the implementation would probably be about a phase 3-year feasibility, 3-year plan with a feasibility site and then funding and engagement and construction. Our long-term impacts are, we are looking well into the future to provide a space that the township can use for future, whether, it's for seniors, it's for the community, and a space that is multifunctional and very flexible and fluid. So, do I have any questions? Did I race through that quick enough?
Nope.
Okay. So, that's where we're at this date. Like I said, I've engaged with Chief Boucher. We've had some conversations, and we're prepared to do the next steps and getting ourselves prepared for August.
Okay. Are you done?
I am.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, the next one is going to be the Open Space Preservation Board. That's being championed by Trustee Morocco. And just so kind of address a little bit of one of the original issues brought up early, Trustee Morocco has a challenging situation because he cannot particularly identify any pieces, property, quantity, or anything else like that, just because of the nature of what his project is. So I think we're probably going to get more conceptual ideas here than any hard figures or numbers like we just received for the senior center. All that, just whenever the township goes to buy property or whatever, it's all done in closed session, so we can get the best possible price so people don't think, oh, it's a township, bottomless pockets, let's raise our price. So. Trustee Morocco.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the intro. So I've been working with the Open Space Advisory Committee and Lisa Christensen from the Parks and Rec Department to identify parcels in the community that we think are relevant and why we matter. We've identified public health improvements, obviously, a stronger social fabric, environmental resilience, economic value, and the quality of life and community identity. So these are all different reasons why we think that acquiring land or more open space or current open space is important to the community. So as I kind of jumped ahead of the slide there, I did recognize Lisa Christensen working with us from the Parks and Seniors, Joe Sucher, Joette Kuntz, Arnie Llewellyn, Tom Pytel, Bill Scarborough, and Brian Posby were on the team to identify parcels and the importance of them to the community. So properties that would protect the current character of the community, we kind of broke them down into a few categories. So we've identified some parcels in the community that we think would be character changing if they were developed, clear cut, or eliminated from the township. So that's one focus that we had on those particular parcels. What the end use, whether they were passive use, or they were adjacent or affiliated with other parcels that could use those, that's yet to be determined depending on them. Other parcels we looked at would be parcels that would expand the park system, that were significant, that were adjacent to it, that would improve that for the township. And then other ones were identified as parcels that would be preserved as open space for either water protections, animal movements, and general open space to connect the dots through the community that have been identified for, like I said, animal movements and watersheds and things like that. So we kind of broke them down into those three categories. Can't tell you what they are, but that's what we did. And our biggest question was, does the township board see value in pursuing these goals? So if they do, our next step would be to bring some of these to the township board in a closed session so that we could discuss which parcels they were and find out what interest the board would have in each of these parcels and their uses, and then pursue possibly obtaining them or options of how we could obtain them. It is a little tricky that we don't want to tip our hand that could affect the purchase prices and stuff of the property, so it's not that we're being secretive, but it is it's just kind of an awkward thing to do, and that is where we're at this point with it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You might have caught us back up.
I did. Taking up time.
All right, the next one is going to be the Parks Improvement Board. This is being championed by Clerk Newbeck and by staff Lisa Christensen.
This is strange. Good evening. Over the past few months and continuing into the next several months, teams throughout the township have been evaluating capital improvement projects as part of our long-term range planning efforts. When Supervisor File asked each board member to select a project, I chose parks because I believe they are one of the township's most valuable community assets and have a direct impact on the quality of life enjoyed by our residents. Tonight's presentation is intended to provide a brief overview of that project, introduce the team involved, discuss the areas we will be evaluating, and provide a preview of what we anticipate bringing back to you in August. Next slide. So why does this matter? Parks are much more than recreational spaces. They provide opportunities for health and wellness, family activities, community events, social connections for residents of all ages. As we look toward the future, it's important that we periodically evaluate our park systems to ensure that these assets remain safe, functional, accessible, and responsive to the needs of the community. This project is not focused on a single improvement or a predetermined outcome. Rather, it's an opportunity to take a comprehensive look into the township's parks, facilities, and infrastructure and identify opportunities to preserve, improve, and responsibly manage these assets for future generations. Like any township asset, parks require thoughtful planning, ongoing investment, and long-term stewardship if we expect them to continue serving our residents well into the future. The project team, this effort is truly a team project. I'm fortunate to have Parks, Recreation, and Senior Services Director Lisa Christensen serving as the staff lead. Lisa and her team bring tremendous knowledge and experience regarding our facilities, programs, operations, and future needs. Supporting this effort will be members of the Parks, Recreation, and Senior Services Department, Finance Department, Department of Public Works, Community Asset Committee, Parks, Recreation, and Seniors, Advisory Committee, and outside professionals as needed. The goal is to gather information and perspectives for those who work with these assets every day so that any future recommendations are based on facts, operational realities, and community needs. Next slide, thanks. Areas of evaluation. Over the coming months, our team will be focusing on several key areas of evaluation. These include asset replacement cycles, existing deficiencies and needs, future improvements and master planning opportunities, grant funding opportunities and partnerships, and operational efficiency and sustainability. We'll be looking at both the current condition of our park assets and the long-term needs of the system as a whole. The objective is to develop a clear understanding of where investments may be needed, what opportunities might exist, and how these opportunities align with community priorities and available resources. The key areas of evaluation. As part of this process, the team will be evaluating several important factors that will help guide future recommendations. This includes reviewing aging infrastructure, asset replacement needs, safety considerations, accessibility improvements, and changing community expectations. We will also evaluate available options for addressing those needs, whether through repairs, replacements, phased implementation strategies, future master planning efforts, or potential partnerships. Financial considerations will be an important part of the discussion as well, including capital costs, operational impacts, life cycle replacement planning, and opportunities to leverage grant funding and other outside resources wherever possible. In addition, we will evaluate implementation strategies and long-term impacts to ensure that any future investments protect township assets, improve the residents' experience, support operational efficiency, and provide lasting value to the community. Ultimately, the goal is to develop a thoughtful, data-driven approach that balances the maintenance of existing assets with future opportunities and community needs. So our August presentation preview. Tonight's presentation was intended to introduce the project and outline our work ahead. Over the next several months, the team will continue gathering information, evaluating existing assets, identifying priorities, exploring funding opportunities, and develop implementation strategies. When we return in August, we anticipate providing the board with a more detailed assessment of the park system, potential project priorities, estimated costs, available funding opportunities, implementation considerations, and committee recommendations for future board discussion. I appreciate the work with Lisa and her team have already put into this effort and look forward to sharing your findings with you, the board, in August. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, the next one up is the new hospital initiative. This is being chaired by Terry Now Matthew, and I am assisting her with that one.
Good evening, everyone. We're looking at the hospital access initiative for the township. This one, a little bit, we can have a lot of meetings, but some of it your hands are tied because there's a lot of state rules and regulations. So it's something we're looking into, but we're not sure how far it'll really get. Why this matters: improved access to emergency and hospital care. It supports a growing and aging population, and long-term community health, safety, and economic vitality. which would, in my mind, would include a lot of jobs as well.
Sorry.
That's okay. I think that was Carrie's.
I gotta hit that button again. This is why I don't normally control the slides.
Oh, I think that's it.
Yeah.
Our team consists of myself, supervisor of file, some township administration, and our community partners going forward will be people from different hospital systems, state officials, and healthcare stakeholders. Areas of evaluation: healthcare demand analysis, the certificate of need requirements, which are what I was talking about that come from the state, hospital system partnerships, site and infrastructure assessment, and community and economic impact. Questions to answer: what problem are we solving? I think some of it is more emergent access to care. I believe it's 20 minutes either way to get to a major hospital. And I think some of that, I'd like to talk more with like Chief Pichet. I think a lot of our staff is just spending time on transporting these people. So if something was closer, it would free up a lot of our emergency team to assist people in the community quicker. What options exist? We have a lot of healthcare systems in the state of Michigan to look at who might be interested in coming here. Again, they might be willing to talk to us, but again, it's driven by the state and that certificate of need. What are the costs? We don't know yet. How would implementation occur? I think between now and August, we have a lot of meetings set up between now and then with some of these healthcare system CEOs, CFOs, and other people in the community to help determine how some of this would look going forward, as well as some state officials. What are the long-term impacts? As we talked about our aging population here, I think everything is just, I would see it as a positive for the community, getting access to care quicker, speedier turnaround, actually anybody in our community, no matter what your age. I just think it would be quicker access to care.
Now, the only thing I'd like to add to that is that when we talk about the costs, and I've mentioned this before, is that we're not looking as a township to build the hospital. Okay, that's whoever the provider would come in, and they would be expected to do that. What we would try to do is help facilitate that process and get it going. As Terry pointed out, the certificate of need is, let me put it this way. When my brother-in-law is a doctor, and one of the things I was saying that we had two big parcels. We have two big parcels. Last two big parcels in the township are owned by hospitals. And I'm like, it'd be nice if we got one in here, because my last ambulance ride took almost 30 minutes to get up to, at the time, Genesis. And he told me point blank, that's way above my pay grade, even as the supervisor. Because all that stuff is just, it's a big battle up in Lansing. So one of the things we're trying to do is trying to get a team together between Terry's people and the people I know to kind of work through that process. But at the end of the day, the hospital system itself would pay for the hospital. I just want to make sure the township, this is not something we would go out and bond a new hospital or anything like that. This is strictly just one of those things of trying to bring in some business. Could go under economic development, but we're looking at it at a hospital specifically.
Our August presentation will include healthcare demand analysis, hospital system discussions, certificate of need pathways, site considerations, stakeholder engagement, implementation challenges, and recommendations for board consideration.
And we do have some meetings with some of the healthcare service providers who have expressed an interest of wanting to have something here in Independence Township. So we do have, that's extremely positive, that when we reached out and called, they were willing to take it and also wanted to take a meeting. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
All right, thank you.
Who's next? All right, next up is, I don't want to get him too full of himself, but St. Hayward is coming up, and I say that because of the fact that he has volunteered to take on what I consider to be one of the most challenging issues, one of the most challenging issues in the township, and that is dealing with the stormwater drain issue. It manifests itself from everything from a detention pond to how they actually are flowing through the main drain systems through the township. And that's probably one of the number one phone calls I get, especially with all the rain we've had in the spring. And he volunteered to take that one on. He came up with this himself to do it. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you.
Oh, and I took your clicker.
Oh, I don't need it. I'll just hit the arrow button. It's
Okay.
fine. So I'm championing the stormwater management and flooding prevention, and it's kind of grown into some extra things regarding wetlands. And I've found a lot of different needs that the township has that we have a lot of opportunities to improve in, and that we're just kind of, we have gaps in what we're doing. So why this matters, the community benefits, obviously we have a lot of flooding issues. That's kind of how this got started, and as Chuck said, and I've had conversations with him, even when I was campaigning, a lot of people brought those issues up to me about flooding, and I think the overall issue or thing, the residents, they all had one thing in common, which was they came to the township for help, and not that we didn't help them, but we didn't know where to go, or they didn't know where to go, or they didn't feel that they were being getting the right answers from the township. And I think so it is important that we do take care of our residents in that way. So I've looked at a lot of different things. We've got quite a range of issues that have been going on over the years. The strategic importance of it, the township owns the Sashabaw Regional Drain. We also hold an MS4 federal stormwater permit, which basically allows us to drain stormwater. I did notice on the bond thing that did come up, but we don't, other than the drain, we don't own any stormwater infrastructure in the township. I found that a lot of residents don't understand that. We do have a lot of opportunities for education. The same with our roads. I think a lot of the residents think that we own the roads and things like that, and we don't. But currently, the Sashabaw Regional Drain is managed along with the permit by DPW Director Dave McKee, who has been helping me on this project. And of course, the rest of the majority of the stormwater drainage infrastructure belongs to RCOC, HOAs, private owners, and also some institutions. When I say private owners, it could be a business or for an example, the development across the street, they have their own stormwater system there. So the long-term value, obviously, we want to be able to, the biggest problem, or a lot of the problems that I do hear from, are about roads, and one of them happened to be Parview. And it's one of the things that I am happy to be personally working on with RCOC to resolve that issue. You can't put a long-term value on the condition of our roads. When the water's on the roads, it destroys the roads. And we all like to talk about our roads, especially in Michigan. So, like I said, staff lead on this is Dave McKee. He's not here tonight, but his deputy Matt is here in support. I put a staff together that's helping me with this. We have 5 township residents, Belinda Billings, Walter Kozar, I knew I was going to have a hard time saying that, but he's here tonight, actually. Mike Zabel, Don Bishop, and Janie Bishop. So also the community partners that I have outside helping out is Chris Dahl from RCOC. He was very happy to be dealing with one person on this subject. I've met him at several locations in the township, and they are working with us to get some of these issues resolved. And also Dick Carlisle, I've reached out to him on, he's kind of helping us on a personal level with this. And also our state representative, Mike Harris, is involved, and he's working on some aspects for us that some state agencies like Eagle to helping us with this thing. Now, I picked our supporting staff based on each unique situation that they have, that they've been dealing with. So they're all kind of different. One is from an HOA perspective, one is from an Eagle perspective. So, and another one has to do with retention ponds as well. So, and they have all had issues where they've come to the township and maybe reached a dead end. And so we're working on with them and helping them through their, so we're kind of learning as we're going through all these case studies of what we have. So areas of evaluation, we have the legal authority. We're finding out exactly what exactly the township can do for some of the things. We have quite a broad legal authority there. Staffing, we're looking at staffing and capacity options. So different staffing models, how it would look starting out, progressive plan, ordinance and enforcement authority, what ordinance we can actually pass to, we have some really good ordinances right now. There are some gaps, and I am looking at some additional ordinances, we'll be working with Carlisle Wortman to find out exactly what works. And so we also have the case studies that we're working on. We have 4 real independent township flooding and draining situations. They're all going to be documented. We're documenting as we go and looking at different agencies that we have to deal with. The difficulty with this whole entire situation is when somebody comes to us and says, hey, all of a sudden my backyard is flooding or the road is flooding. Who's responsible? Well, it could be our COC. It could be the HOA. It could be the drain commissioner. I mean, there's a lot of different people involved. So I'm getting the hook. Okay, I'll keep moving along. Anyway, this is a big. We've had a few meetings. This is a big, quite a comprehensive thing that's going on. So, problems that we're solving, obviously, the stormwater problems that we have, the flooding. What options exist? Looking at adding, like I mentioned, adding some more ordinances and possibly more personnel. We're going to look at the costs. I haven't determined those yet, and how the implementation would occur. We're looking at that as well, and I'll have more information come August. And the long-term impacts will be a dry township, good roads, and so I'm going to present the research, the alternatives that we have to solve this solution to this problem, the costs, funding opportunities, and recommendations to the board. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, we have the Town Hall Campus Improvement Board, and this is being headed up by trustee Paul Brown, and staff lead is Dave Moran, and they're both here.
Hello, everyone. This is a fairly easy one, and I'll probably be pretty quick. I want to point one thing out for the board. I think a lot of you already know this about the building. This building was originally built back in, I think, 2000. It was an office building, and it had multiple tenants. And I bring this up first as we look at this because one of the things we're going to probably try to do immediately, we need to replace our heating and cooling system. And we're probably going to just start bringing that forward through the normal process. We spent a lot, right now we have like 8 furnaces that used to service individual offices, and there were 8 gas meters and 8 electric systems, so it was not designed the way we use it. And we spent quite a bit of money having heating and cooling guys come out, because I'll be in my office in the morning and it's 75, and down in the clerks it's 68, or vice versa. And it's very hard for the professionals who come in to try to figure out how to fix it, because we're using it in a way it wasn't designed. So I'll let Dave, let's jump in here, I guess, and look at this. I wanted to bring that out first, though, as we talk about the building. Myself and Dave Moran, the building director. Why it matters. It's a primary location for resident services. Other than the senior center and the parks, probably this is one of the places that a lot of residents will come. Strategic importance, optimization of department layouts, locations to ensure excellent service to residents across all departments and functions. Long-term value, upgrading systems and space layouts will ensure optimal utilization to benefit both residents and staff in performance of all public duties, while also protecting the value of an important taxpayer asset. This probably is the most valuable building we own as far as assets go. Myself, Dave Moran, our building director, as we look at what this, here's a problem and why we won't be able to take immediate action on this, or we have to sort of have 2 different routes we may go on. Depending on what happens with, for example, the senior center, if a new senior center is built, I think there's a high probability that our Parks and Rec department likely becomes moving into that building. right? So that would make sense. And if that's the route that happens, it changes things here as far as our evaluation of the space needs, because that whole side of the lower level suddenly becomes open. So we have to consider that. Moving to a rooftop heating and cooling system, which I think is what we're gonna end up doing, opens up, we have two big utility rooms back in the other half of this basement. About one of them's gonna go away, so again, more space available. So for us, it's looking at utilization and working with, from a security standpoint, fire and sheriff department, because right now it's pretty easy for anybody to come in and get access. And we've had sheriff called with emergency buttons. It typically happens a couple times a year, and those can be certainly frightening situations for our employees. So we'll get input from fire and sheriff, input from staff, every department, about how they operate, what does the best look like for them as far as their needs as we look into the future. So it's not a decision Dave and I can make without the input from employees in each department. Then here, I pointed out the heating and cooling system problems we have. The current furnaces, I think 2 of them have been replaced, but 4 or 5 of them are going to have to be replaced, and I just don't think it's a good use of money. I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, we have 7 different systems, and 2 have been replaced. The others 5 are beyond the end of their useful life. But what we're looking at in terms of the hall itself is improved indoor air quality, improved lighting systems, improved egress, exit strategies, that kind of thing. So there's a lot to come for the August presentation, including cost evaluations. We're meeting with architects and engineers to put together a bigger, broader scope of what we might do with Township Hall in the future. So it's about all we have right now.
Perfect. He said it well. Again, the problems we're solving, I think I've gone through that already. I mean, costs, we don't know what the costs are going to be. That's going to come in August, and I think that's it. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
On the nose. 5 minutes. All right, and then the last presentation is for the new Community Safety Center, Public Safety Center. That is mine, and that is being also done with Chief Bechet, so I'm going to invite him up. Come on.
Back there, just a little crib.
Do you want the clicker back?
Oh, I can, yeah.
I don't know.
I'll give it to the chair. Hold on.
Yeah, I should have brought that with me. Here.
4 minutes and 58 seconds left.
All right, so I'm in charge. I took on the Township Public Safety Center. It started off originally as a new substation. Our substation has been around for almost 30 years now, and it was designed for a time that doesn't exist today. So one of the things in the evaluation that Chief Bechet and I have gone through is taking a look and saying, what are we trying to build for the future? So tonight I'm pleased to introduce the Public Safety Capital Improvement Project. As many of you know, each member of the board selected a capital improvement project. For the long-term planning, my selection was purposely, I did pick this one outright for myself. The purpose tonight is going to be to talk about, is not about how to fund the project. It's not about approving a building or making any decision regarding a future facility. Rather, it's to begin a thoughtful evaluation of whether a public safety center could better serve the needs of our community over the next several decades. The why does it matter is that public safety is one of the most important services local governments can provide. Residents expect quick response times, professional services, community engagement, accessibility to public safety resources as Independence Township continues to grow and evolve. It's important that we periodically evaluate whether our facilities are positioned to support those expectations both today and into the future. As a public safety center has the potential to strengthen the public safety presence within our community, support modern policing and service deliveries, and serve as a long-term community asset that protects the quality and property value of our lives here in Independence Township. If not, I can do it. Project team. All right, the project team will be led by myself as the board chairman. I have Chief Bechet with me, having the experience and expertise in knowing what it takes to build a new facility. As we have found out, he is obviously building a new fire station. And that type of build-out is one of the most expensive the township's ever done. So having him as a resource to go back to is fantastic. I'm also dealing with Lieutenant Buckman of the Oakland County Sheriff's Department and trying to understand a better understanding of what the needs are from their perspective. It's fascinating to me that when I was talking to them, that they were talking about things of having a difference between an interrogation room for a perp versus a victim. We use the same rooms. As a matter of fact, the walls are pretty thin right now, so you can hear through them if you're in both rooms. We have a lobby that is tiny, and so therefore both could be in the waiting room. New schools of thoughts are you try to make the room where the individual is going to be a little bit more comfortable. And these are all the things that the Oakland County Sheriffs, some residents that I've talked to that have law enforcement and counseling backgrounds have been part of this team and will continue to be a part of this team. From an operational standpoint, first we'll conduct an operational analysis to better understand the current and future public service and safety needs. Second, we'll evaluate potential locations, determine whether there are sites that could effectively support a public safety center. The third will be to assess facility and property requirements and understand what type of building and supporting infrastructure would be necessary. And fourth, we will continue to perform financial analysis to evaluate costs, funding opportunities, and long-term financial impacts. And finally, we will conduct a community impact assessment to ensure any future recommendations along with the residents aligns with residents and expectations of the township's priority. As part of the questions that we're going to be answering, it's going to be what problems are we trying to solve? Again, I think we're trying to figure out how do we get caught up today with the modern policing and where do we think it's going and making sure that we have that, but not only the police. I think there's a lot of public safety information in areas that need to be brought into. We need to create a facility, I believe, that will engage the community on a different level than more of an authoritative one, but more of an interactive type one. Handling silly things like training classes or programs for teaching on e-bikes. We all know e-bikes are a big issue, but there's a big education process that needs to go through it. So having a place where that can happen is part of also what I'm talking about from a public safety standpoint as opposed to a traditional police station. We are looking at several different options, and the options are everything from the location. We've identified a couple different locations and how those get funded, which is part of the costing. Who pays it? When does it get paid? So on and so forth. What is it going to be? Those are things that we're going to be working through with some of the outside consultants. The implementation will probably follow one that's very similar to what we did with the fire station in that process, where there's always incremental steps where the board gets to interact. Is that 5? Okay. I'm getting the hook. So we'll go through those types of things. And obviously what we want to do is make sure we're building it for the long term. August presentation will include stakeholder input, so we will have some people in here explaining why we are doing what we're doing and what parts of it. The facility alternatives, what were the different sites, different cost estimates, and ultimately the timeline and everything. I think at the end of the day, the board should be able to utilize to make a determination if this is the direction they want to go. Thank you. Good job. Okay. 5 minutes goes really fast when you're up there. All right, let's move on for presentations. We do not have anything from a carryover standpoint. Consent agendas, request to approve the Board of Trustees regular session meeting minutes of June 9, 2026. Second on the concession is request to approve the June 17, 2026 check run, including ACH for $1,161,813.34. Ratify the June 5th, 2026 payroll of $386,789.02. The April 26th EFT ACH wire activity for $623,711.22. And our third item is request to approve 2026 PRS budget, Parks, Recs, and Seniors budget amendment number 15, special events from Lisa, and request to accept Radio Lodge rental with alcohol. Can I get a motion to approve the consent as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right, items removed from the consent agenda, there aren't any. So now we're going to get into the regular business. First item on the regular business is going to be vote R1. We're not going to read that. Is a request to approve the Township Paving and Special Assessment District Policy and Procedure. This particular amendment is to make the board aware that the demand for road improvements continue to exceed available resources based on the previous policy. The way the previous policy stated, it was using a fund of 3.2 million. We have, the need is far exceeding the revenue and the revenue flow. Once we loan it out and trying to get it back, it just far exceeds it. So we were looking at trying to figure out a better way to be able to do this where it's more scalable. So the purpose of tonight's discussion is to determine whether the proposed amendments improve the township's ability to facilitate road projects while protecting taxpayers, maintaining financial responsibility, and establish clear expectation for participating neighborhoods. The question before the board is whether the proposed policy revision represents an appropriate framework for future paving projects. Understand, please, that what we're looking at is more of an understanding of, is this something that the board would like to continue through and investigate? And through there, I included in the packet the original or the current SAD policy, and then also some of the concepts of things that we were looking at changing. It really primarily focuses around only a couple things, one of which is going to be the source of funding. How would we do that? We learned earlier tonight that there's bonding opportunities for SADs. To be clear, that if we were to do if a subdivision was to come in and say that, yes, we would like to be able to do this, we're using this as an alternative to the county's RCOC approach. We have demonstrated, at least in the last 3 that the board approved, that it's somewhere between 30 and 40% savings to the residents. The idea here is that to be able to give them this option on a scalable option, we had 15 requested, we were only able to give 3. And so now what we'd like to do is be able to go out and bond for those projects. I did understand here, and I just want to make some points clear here, that when they were talking about bonding projects, it would not be on a per sub basis. When we were talking about, and will be in the language ultimately will be, there will be 2 dates, one in the spring and one in the fall, where subdivisions can come in, or even, it doesn't even have to be a subdivision, it can just be an area, and come in and say, we would like to be able to participate in this program. You know, we'd go, okay, we're taking the residents, or the group, that district, and say 60% have to say yes. Right now, I think we're sitting at 50% or 55. Higher than 50. Higher than 50, so, okay, 51 plus, 51 or higher. We're now taking that up to 60 to make sure that there is that supporting vote, because you always lose a few once the financial numbers start coming into play. And then being able to go out and bond it. So if we had 6 subdivisions or 6 districts that wanted to do it, we would roll it all into one bond, which we are able to do, go out and bond it out. When we do those types of bonds, the SAD bonds, please understand that we are not taking money out of the township's funds. 100% of this is being paid for by that district's residents. They get assessed the amount, and it comes on the tax roll. We're collecting it, and then we're paying the debt service on the bond. The only risk from doing this is that if you have a SAD, and let's just make it the worst case scenario, and I don't think we'd ever do it, but you had 2 properties that wanted to do an SAD, and one of them ends up going into foreclosure after we did the SAD, and now the state is taking, or the county's taking over the house. We do have a window there where we're still going to have to service the debt before any foreclosure actions can be taken in order to be able to help recoup some of that money. We are eligible for it, but there is a time lag there that the township could be on the hook for some of those payments. Extremely rare to have that happen. Extremely rare, especially when you're talking about a large pool of money that we're talking about. But we also are maintaining part of that reserve fund that's getting paid back now in the 3.2 to be able to help offset and carry us through those time frames. The rest of the stuff in there was pretty straightforward. It was more kind of understanding a little bit more about the bonds and how it would apply to this project specifically, which we went through and had that conversation. And so at this point, does this sound Any questions from the audience? Let's go there. Yes, please. Oh, but I picked her first.
No, he can go. You go first. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Good evening to you. Glad to see you. Mark Pedersen, 6716 Almond Lane. I'm glad to see you guys getting on to something like this. It's helping the residents. Look, I am rather put aside as to why you're involved in this at all, but it is, and to me it looks real political, but it is helping the residents in the end. Our neighborhoods need to be repaved. I'm very concerned about some of the language in there, and even more so, I'm wondering just exactly what is your metric, what is your policy, what is your intent to prevent, say, 4 companies bid, because I read your thing in the board packet. Say 4 companies bid on this, and how are you going to prevent or protect the residents in those bids? In other words, we have one company that just gave you an outrageous bid, and we have 3 other companies that followed right behind with outrageous bids. But that one company was intended to give you that bid to make the other 3 look competitive. So I know Oakland County has a process that's very, very, very good at it, because Oakland County is the best at it. I think at your last board meeting, some of you stated that you weren't experts at a few things. Well, Oakland County, they are experts. They know what's going on. They know the price. They know what the company's going to cost. They know every inch of asphalt. I could go on and on and on and just bore you to tears. But I'm very concerned that in your policy there, it stated that after a certain amount of time, if there seems to be some kind of failure, that you could impose another SAD to fix the failure. Well, look, roads don't last that long. You get what you pay for. So I know that some of the roads weren't completely milled out and completely paved. They just did a 2-inch mill and fill. Well, that's not going to last long. It's not. I'm going to give it 8, maybe 9 years tops. Our garbage trucks, a few of them come into your communities with super quads. They're ticking out at 85,000 pounds. So you do that once or twice a week, and your roads are eventually going to start rolling, and then they're going to start cracking. Well, my concern is your policy as to continued, if there seems to be a need. In other words, if the neighbor A calls about cracks in the road, and they want them fixed right now, we just paid blah, 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 blah. Well, remember, these are not our roads. These roads belong to Oakland County. So at some point, I understand what you're trying to do, and I agree with it. However, at some point, you need to take a step back and understand that Oakland County maintains these roads. They take care of them, not the homeowner. So whether you paid for your road to get repaved or not, it still belongs to Oakland County. It doesn't belong to the township, doesn't belong to any of us. It's county roads. And it's their job to take care of those roads. Not me on Almond Lane, who's been destroyed for decades, to pay for somebody over on Ellis Road to have their neighborhood paved. Now, I agree with a new bonding structure to help that, to where it's not coming out of the township, the taxpayer, me on Almond Lane. I agree with that. And I commend you for thinking about something like that and getting it more reasonable. So anyway, I mean, if you ever have a question about a road, feel free to ask me. I'll bore you to death about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Please.
Ray Llewellyn, 9254 Pine Knob Road. No, I am not interested in any SADs for where I live. But my question is this, on the SAD, if the township has this pot of money and they loan it out to Brian for his SAD, and then his group makes payments back to the township to pay it back, is there interest on that, or are they just doing this just because they're nice people?
We don't interact.
Okay, okay.
But we can address it probably at some point. Okay. Is there any other comments from the audience? No? Are there any online then? No? Okay, I'll bring it up to the board. Treasurer Brown.
I'll jump in real quick. In the past, what we've done is the interest rate on our special assessments for quite some time had been 6%. It's the same amount, it's the same rate that the county charges. The beauty of bonding for this is that the interest rate the township's going to be able to get is going to be something three and a half, sure. And even if we bumped it up a little bit, say 4%, the difference is significant for the taxpayers. It's going to be a much lower rate for them as they pay this back. And it's going to make it more affordable for those folks being in that 3.5% to 4% interest rate. So yes, interest is paid, and then that money is simply used to pay down the bond. So they give us the bond money, the roads get paved, the taxpayers pay us back with interest, and that interest is going to cover the interest we're paying on the bond. And so it's really in and out, and we do have an administrative fee the township would collect. And so that covers the internal costs, so that it's truly the folks who benefit that are paying for it, including administratively, because there's an administrative fee that only they pay. Residents on Ellis wouldn't pay 1 penny towards it. So hope that answers it.
Any other questions?
On the whole
Okay.
topic, I just,
Trustee
I mean,
Markle.
I've always been all for it. I mean, obviously, this mechanism is to prevent people from having to use the county mechanism, which exists, so we don't, if we did nothing, there's still a mechanism, it's just a more expensive mechanism. So I just want to make sure, to some of Mark's points, and we talked about before, that that there is a good mechanism to, that if a homeowners association is putting out for bid, privately to save money, and we're going to fund it private, through an SAD to save the percentage rate on the loan, as Treasurer Brown alluded to, that the protections of that, like we talked about engineering and stuff, that in that cost, there needs to be the ability for someone to verify that all of it is going through, if it's not going to be the county that's going to do it, that everything's being done because I just want to make sure that we're putting enough protections in place so the residents, as Mr. Patterson alluded to, that they're protected. Just because we're offering this service as a way of saving money to try to get to the 51% of initially, or at the end, I mean, and I'm not well versed on all the language here, that those protections are in place for the residents, because I think it's going to, and whether or not they have to have a county-approved paving companies are the only ones that we would allow our SAD to be used for, to try to eliminate, to make sure that they're vetted by the county, that it isn't open to just any contractor. Because I don't mind giving them the savings on the interest, I don't want to give them, I don't want to be worried about whether the quality is to the county standard, because it is a county road and they own it. And as Mr. Patterson alluded to, we're going to be reaching out to the county to fix that road. Again, at some point, it's the county road's repair, that they're going to be on the hook for. So same kind of concerns, I just have those. But I think we're on the right path of finding a way of funding that's independently tied to the SAD and not to the township's general fund and our fund balance. That's all.
Okay, so you are echoing what your concerns were a year and a half ago, when we came up with the original policy, and that was that, and to that point, we have not changed that. The RCOC does still need to sign off on the engineering aspect of it, because again, it is the county's roads. RCOC, the county's roads. So all that type of stuff from the engineering aspect and approval, it's all stated in the first page there, third paragraph down, that it does have to be approved, the engineering, all that has to be approved by there. The one thing you brought up, and I don't actually know the answer to, is if it had to be a county-approved
Contractor?
That I'm not 100% sure, but there will be probably a few more of these little things here before it comes to the point where we actually validate the final version of the proposal. So, the policy, thank you. And so tonight, again, is talking about, do we move forward? If so, what are some of the concerns, and we'll bring those into there. So I will put that down as one to check.
Just real quick on the,
Treasurer Brown.
just real quick on the contractors, the size of the projects we're talking about, there are only a handful of contractors who are going to bid on these. And I believe in the case of the last ones we just did, all of them had done work for the county. And so the ones that got selected obviously had done work for the county. I don't think it was required, but I don't think we're going to find any.
Yeah, real simple. So the county, not only, as the supervisor indicated, has to be built to county standards. They review those standards, make sure that it's appropriate, and they also comment on the contractor as well. So if they don't like the contractor, they're not going to approve it.
Okay. Trustee Hayward.
So they're there like every day, the county's there looking at, watching that project happen. In our particular neighborhood, the contractor that we use, they come out every year to inspect the road, to inform us whether we need to seal it or not. So this year they came out and inspected. Of course, there's cracks. You did a mill and fill. They said that the cracks aren't big enough to fill yet. They'll be out next year. They come out every year for free. I mean, well, free is whatever, but they come out, and inform us whether we need to do maintenance on the road or not. And we do have funds set aside to pay for that. That was technically part of the SAD. So we at least have things in the future that were set up through this program to make sure that not only do we have the roads built properly, that we have a mechanism to repair them and to maintain them going forward so they don't get into disrepair.
So for point of clarification, Trustee Hayward, subdivision was one of the three that I was talking about it. He did recuse himself on the voting of whether or not to approve that at the board level. So he is talking from firsthand experience.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? No? Okay, then I will close that, and I would like to, I guess I'm the sponsor, so make a motion to approve the board review and consideration of the amendments to the Township Paving Special Assessment District SAD policy and procedure to establish a scalable, financial, responsible, and operational sustainable framework for the subdivision paging project. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Okay, and Madam Clerk, can I please get a roll call vote?
Clerk Newbeck, yes. Treasurer Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Hayward?
Yes.
Trustee Morocco?
Yes.
Trustee Nalamatu?
Yes.
Supervisor File?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, and that was a 2/3 vote. Just to set the expectations, there will be one more round where we have the hard-written document of what all these things would look like. So we'll have one more chance at the bat, so to speak, to review this and make sure it's all locked down tight. Okay. Next item, request to amend the policy regarding timely receipt of property taxes. This is being brought forward again by Treasurer Brown, because he found a way to improve it. So with that, please.
Technically, I was trying to improve it. I got a little ahead of myself with I think I had it right initially, and I kept thinking, well, why don't I just give them another week? And again, this is related to, we're going to accept postmarks now for tax payments. The township has the authority to have a policy on that. The state allows us to do that. And in fact, right now, the state's has legislation pending that would make it a requirement to accept postmarks for tax payments. But when I brought this at the last meeting, I said we would accept them, that we had to receive the payment by September 28th for the summer bill and by February 28th for the winter bill. And so that when I took this back, and my staff and I were just going through everything again and talking about our process, and we pulled up the statutes, and the statute has something very specific that says we can't say we received it prior to 7 days from the actual, we can't go backwards more than 7 days, essentially. Which means I was trying to go backwards 2 weeks. I wanted to be more generous. The statute, there's a spot in there that doesn't let me do that. It has to be 1 week. So it's gonna be 7 days. And so the only change here, and it's pretty clear, I just line out the 28th and make it the 21st for both September and February. And we just amend, this is essentially amending the new policy. And I do expect this to probably change at the end of this year or next year when the state moves on that, on the plan they have now. So we'll be close to that one, might just require a little tweaking.
Any questions from the audience? No? Okay. Any questions online? No? Okay. I'll close public questioning, comments, bring it up to the board. Any questions or comments from the board? No? Okay. Paul, you're the...
I'll move to amend policy regarding timely receipt of property tax payments by postmark and authorized electronic payment approved under resolution number 2026-013 as presented.
Support.
Can I get a roll call, please, Madam Clerk?
Treasurer Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Hayward?
Yes.
Trustee Morocco?
Yes.
Trustee Nalamatu?
Yes.
Supervisor File?
Yes.
Clerk Newbeck, yes. Motion carried.
Okay, great. The next item is to request an emergency and public service communications. I'm bringing this back forward to look at the using the Pine Knob digital message board for emergency and public service communications. The focus of this discussion is limited to communication involving public safety, public health, and emergency preparedness. The policy question before the board is whether retaining access to the communication channel serves the public interest and complements the township's broader emergency communication. In the actual MAFE, there was, under recommendations, a bullet point, the very last bullet point. It was brought to my attention that somebody read it and gave me their interpretation. I would like to strike it, and that is the section where it says public service announcements promoting residents' awareness of township service, programs, election, public meeting, parks, recreation opportunities, community events, and other information deemed beneficial to the residents. I'd like to strike that because with that in there, it was brought to my attention that that could very much seem like we were taking this up all the way back to before the last motion in the last meeting. So the gist of this is really kind of more or less to get back to Trustee Morocco's motion, but still allow for emergency messaging to be put on the board. At this time, I would open it up to the floor. Does anybody on the floor have any in the public comments? No? Okay. Anybody online have any public comments? No? Okay. I'll close public comments, bring it up to the board. Anybody on the board have any questions or comments? Okay,
Go ahead, start with.
Go ahead.
I always seem to go first, so I'll let you go.
Clerk Newbeck.
Before you came, Supervisor File, we have an internal committee, the ITAC committee. And we had been discussing before you came and had sanctions in place to start Gov Delivery. And my thought is Gov Delivery would probably better serve the needs than the Pine Knob sign for emergency communications. That's something that Oakland County does. We've done it other municipalities, and that's something that the residents then can choose what level of information they want to receive, whether it's township agendas, meetings, parks activities, weather conditions, all of that kind of, those kind of things. It was also something that I think we started with our prior PIO person as well, with also coordinating that to generate notifications to staff when we have storm, bad weather, and we have building closures and things like that. So in my opinion, I've been trying to get this Gov Delivery since I've been here. It's a great tool, whether it's emergency or whether it's elections or anything to that fact. And I think that would be a better avenue than the Pine Knob sign.
Okay. Trustee now, Matthew.
I just have a question now since you brought that up. What is the fee for that?
There's no fee.
No, there's not.
We're actually already signed up for it.
We have it.
Could you please talk into your microphones, because it's hard to back.
Yeah, there's no fee for it. The question by trustee Matthew was, is there a fee for .gov, and there is not. And it was also stated that we currently have that tool available.
My only concern regarding that is that we don't have control over who do we contact when we need to put something on that sign. Are they available 24 hours? How long is it going to take them to put something up? What if they make a mistake? Who's responsible? I would more recommend also, on top of what Clerk Newbeck recommended, would be on top of that, which would be to, if we're going to do LED signs, that we would install our own signs right out in front of the Township Hall. And then I would at least say one at the fire department at Clarkston and Sasheball Roads. And that way we can put all of our information on there, whatever information we want on there, what we don't want, meetings, everything. We have full control of it. If something's wrong, we can change it, and we're responsible for it. And I wouldn't want to hold another, you know, I think that we have our own way of communicating. We shouldn't be, you know, going to the public for that. That's all, the private sector for that, rather. That's
Okay. Trustee Morocco.
I did have that on the MAIF. It was kind of a concession I was making, I felt, by offering that. And then I did talk to Trustee Hayward and reminded myself of the times that we have talked about doing our own message boards at the fire stations and at City Hall, Township Hall, that would be in compliance with the ordinance and could be used for any kind of information we want. It wouldn't be just emergency information. So I would be in favor of pursuing that, along with what Clerk Newbeck has to say. I think that it would be beneficial to us to have digital messaging that complies with the ordinance at certain strategic locations. I would, you know, Township Hall, maybe Road Fire Station, and the Clarkson and Sasheball Fire Station would be the three that, or possibly, you know, would be the three that I would immediately go to, thinking that would be an appropriate spot that we have the infrastructure to easily do. And I would rather stay away from us using any signs that we're regulating. I just think that we have two other alternatives that have been introduced tonight that would meet that requirement of what we're trying to do. So I'd be more in favor of pursuing those other options and staying out of the private sector. If Amber Alerts, things like that were brought up, that's not regulated by the township anyway. I would expect that any business who's following things or those types of things, or boil water alerts or whatever, whether we have an agreement with them or not, that just like there's businesses on Sasheball that say welcome to Independence Township on their digital billboard that meets compliance, that they would jump in and, you know, just add on to that. And with the program that Carrie's talking about, they would immediately get notified of things that would be beneficial to us. And then on a voluntary basis, I would hope that they would help convey that message for us. So those are my thoughts.
Okay. Treasurer Brown?
I like both those ideas that are being talked about. They're not available yet. So, you know, maybe there's a possibility we could at least, while those are pending, approve something here that can sunset in 6 months, so that the opportunity for these emergency things that aren't going to show up there very often anyways. But it's there, they're letting us do it. I think we've done it before, and with some other places. So we could certainly put in a 6 month, and in that 6 months, maybe we could get the gov messages set up and be moving towards getting the LED signs that you guys are talking about. And in 6 months, this wouldn't be there, and it'd be reevaluated by the board.
Okay.
Which is another
I'm going to
option.
go, and then.
Oh, okay.
Then we'll go round two.
Okay.
I just want to address a couple things real quick. The .gov communication, we've had this tool for years here. It is a voluntary system, so you have to get people willing to enroll in it. So that's not as easy as you may think. It's not like we can suddenly broadcast out a text message to everybody because we can access their phones. They literally have to go in and enroll. You pointed out, the last PO person here, tried to get the employees on, and I think at best we got up to about 40%. So it's not an easy thing to scale out. Just, not saying it's impossible, I'm just saying it's not easy, and it would definitely take some time, because you have to voluntarily go in there, put your name and your email address and all that kind of stuff. As far as the availability of the individuals, you either have it or you don't, right? So from the standpoint of whether Pine Knob is going to be there 24/7 to put something up, or as trustee Morocco was saying, that hopefully good neighbors and all that, partners in the township, they'll put it up. We have the same constraint all the way across the board. Availability is going to be availability. And as far as owning our own signs, I love that idea. I think that's a great idea. Just like the .gov, though, is that we have an extremely large venue that brings in 18,000 people per concert that may or may not even see a sign that we have either at the police station or the fire station or the township. That doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. I agree 100% we should have those signs there, and I completely support that notion going forward. But we got to remember too, like the .gov, we have a lot of people coming into our township that would never sign up for .gov. They would never even know. We wouldn't even know how to reach them to do it. To me, I look at it as just simply another communication method to get the message out. And I think the other thing that I just want to, my part of this would be, is that I think it's important to note that the board did not sue Pine Knob. The board sued the ZBA for making a decision to what I think many on the board feels was violated our ordinances. So it wasn't Pine Knob. Pine Knob played by the rules, came in, and the ZBA awarded to them. So I think one of the things that we have to remember as a board, a lot of it is being tied to the Pine Knob sign, but it was not Pine Knob that did something wrong. It was the belief that the ZBA did something wrong. And I think that given the fact that they're one of our biggest revenue drivers in this township, means that we should not look at ignoring them or offending them, or not offending, that's not right, because we should not ignore them or think that because of the sign, they did something wrong, because I don't believe they did. And they are trying to be good neighbors to the extent of allowing us to use it for free. Those other signs, they're all gonna start somewhere between 20 to 30,000. So as we're talking about adding them, it's a thing that I think it's gonna take a little time to roll out, but it definitely could be. Trustee Hager.
Yeah, I would just say that obviously we've gone all these years without that sign there, so I don't know what a couple of more months would make for our own signs. And secondly, I would think that a list of all these things, that people sitting in line waiting to get in Pine Knob don't care about drinking water advisories or boil water notices or any of these other issues that, they're wanting to go see a concert. They don't live here. None of these things would affect them anyway. So I don't know what.
Police, fire, emergency management.
Well, they're
emergency
sitting in line to get into,
warnings,
they're sitting in line to get into Pine Knob.
Severe warning for weather.
Well, they might not be going to the concert then, but they would know that, I would think. But I'm just saying, that's just my opinion. We've lived with it this long without it. If we want to get messages out, I don't think that we should rely on the private sector to do it.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Since this was mine, I'll read the motion. Motion to authorize the township supervisor or his designee to utilize the Pine Knob Digital Message Board for emergency communication, public safety notification, public health advisory. I'm going to skip the public service announcement because that could get back into what was deemed advertising, that directly affect township residents consistent with the township existing use of digital communication platforms and message boards for similar purposes. Can I get a second?
A second.
Can I get a roll call vote, please, Madam Clerk?
Trustee Hayward?
No.
Trustee Morocco?
No.
Trustee Nalmathu?
Yes.
Supervisor File?
Yes.
Clerk Newbeck, no. Treasurer Brown?
Yes.
Motion failed for lack of support.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the request to approve consideration of trustee sanctions for trustee Morocco. The purpose of this discussion is not to revisit policy disagreements, voting positions, or differing points of view. The question before the board is whether conduct occurred that may warrant consideration under the board's adopted policies, rules, and standards of conduct. The board's responsibility this evening is to review the information presented, consider any applicable policies, and determine whether any action is appropriate. I would also ask that all discussion remain focused on facts, policy, and the matter before the board. Now with that, I would like to bring up Nancy, probably. or to Kellyford. I'll let them decide who should come up.
Yeah, I'll start it very quickly. There's two things. You have received a legal opinion from my colleague Nancy Olin. So if there's any specific questions with regard to your handbook, employment policies and so forth, she's here to answer those. But the actual request is with regard to a censure of a sitting elected official. And in that regard, let me just address that. Effectively, as the board knows from the opinion, there's very little a board can do about the behavior of a trustee, elected trustee. And so effectively, a censure is a statement by a majority of the board that we disapprove of the actions of the trustee. There's no standard. There's no, you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that it has to be a criminal action. It's just a majority of the board believes that the behavior is inappropriate. And I'll leave it at that, and if Nancy wants to address, or if you have any questions with regard to the legal issues, I'll let Nancy address those. Yes. Trustee, he has a question.
Wait, no.
Oh.
Let's just get
A question.
Yeah, well, it's not our turn yet.
Oh.
We could bring it to the audience first.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about procedurally. I wanted to know if it would be appropriate for the MAIF to be read. He read a summary that didn't really encompass the severity of the charges, and I think that the MAIF should be read into the record.
That's fine. I'm happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
As such, Township Supervisor and Director of Personnel under MCL 42-10N, I am compelled to bring to the Board of Trustees the disturbing and repeated behavior of Trustee Morocco towards Township employees. On numerous occasions, Trustee Morocco has made public demands for personnel changes, and repeatedly criticized employees' performance in Township meetings. Following complaints from the Township employees that they felt uncomfortable and intimidated when Trustee Morocco would enter the back office of Township Hall, as Supervisor and Director of Personnel, I restricted all trustees' access and door keys to public areas of the Township Hall. Trustees continue to have access to all information and can communicate with necessary Township employees when properly scheduled and agreed to by the employee. In response to this reasonable workplace restriction, Trustee Morocco placed attached photographs of himself on several access doors with the statement, "No Trustee Morocco allowed past this point." See it, the attached photograph. Unprofessional and disturbing behavior has caused employees to report personnel safety concerns and feelings of being bullied or threatened. For this reason, I'm requesting Trustee Morocco be sanctioned for his inappropriate behavior and the supervisor to be authorized by the Board of Trustees to take further appropriate action, specifically to Trustee Morocco, to protect Township employees and promote a safe and positive workplace environment. And I would probably amend that by stating this morning, Trustee Morocco once again came in, started beating on a door that was loudly heard through two different departments and said, "Oh yeah, I forgot, I'm not allowed in here."
They didn't answer the door.
Yeah, well, they saw you, and that was enough. Okay.
All right, so good evening, boards. Thank you for having us. You have the opinion, you have the outline in front of you. You can address me with any questions that you might like me to follow up on. Essentially, this would be a censure, which is, as just so that everyone knows, that is a formal offering of the board's disappointment or dissatisfaction with conduct. As Dan explained, it is nothing beyond that. There is no standard. It is simply that the board would want to make a formal declaration that they are dissatisfied or disappointed with specific conduct.
Okay. We'll probably call you back up later, but thank you. All right, any questions or comments? Not questions, but any comments from the room? Please come up and state your name.
Brian Posby, 6108 Lake Walden Drive. So censure, sanctions, I'm sorry, I don't understand the full definitions of this. What would happen to Trustee Morocco's voting authority? I mean, what does all this mean?
Again, we don't interact, but just and we'll address it later. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or any other comments from the audience? Please.
Ray Llewellyn, 9254 Pine Knob Road. So I'm much like Brian. You know, you're saying you can't interact with us, you can't answer our questions. We understand that. We're not gonna start jumping up and down screaming at you. But it's just frustrating from our side because it's like, okay, you people are sitting up there, you're wanting to make decisions, and we have questions, but we can't get answers to them. But yet, we can sure pay our taxes that support this function, this building, and this township. And to me, as a resident and as a taxpayer, even before tonight, I can say I have been thoroughly, thoroughly disappointed in this board. I mean, some of the board members, you can contact them, they'll answer your questions. If you needed help on something, as an example, I contacted Trustee Hayward about the water drainage. He responded immediately. I've contacted other township members, board members, and I got zip. Well, you work for me. I don't work for you. And when I come and ask a question, whether it's the answer I wanted to get or not, I think I should get an answer. And tonight, to go after one person that, you know, hey, I don't like them, we're gonna gang up and do something with them, I think is wrong. I think that this board collectively, as all the members on it, should be working together. Not as, we don't have, I mean, pretty soon we're gonna have marches out here of no kings. Because to me, that's what this board is coming to. Now, there's some members that I've contacted in the past, like one in particular, I contacted Carrie, and I said, I'm in Florida, I'm online, I raised my hand, I'm not getting noticed. The next time, she said, well, the next time I see you, you'll probably be here, which is correct. But at least she responded to me. I'm a resident, I'm a taxpayer, and I think that this action tonight is totally, totally uncalled for. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience? Okay, any comments online? I don't think there is anybody online, is there? No. All right, so I will bring it up to the board, close public comments, bring it up to the board. Any questions or comments from the board? Trustee Brown. I'm sorry, Treasurer Brown.
I think it's important for the board to understand that we're all here temporarily. 4 years could be a whole nother board here. Sometimes you get more than that, maybe you get here 8 years. At the end of the day, we're temporary, and it's the board's job to govern. It's the supervisor's job to manage, and manage the people. That's how the rules work. It's not the board's job to manage the employees. And that's kind of been said over and over. Our employees, they're here for the long term. And again, I see it every day, that the work they put in. We've got employees who've been here 40 years. And when this board talks about negatively about employee performance, it doesn't just affect one person. All the employees see it, and it really hurts the culture and the employees' sense of well-being in this community. And they don't deserve it. And it's been talked about at these meetings multiple times. And Trustee Morocco has done it over and over and over at meetings. And I get overly passionate about it, and folks in the audience know that. Because I don't think this board has a responsibility to the employees. And yes, this action doesn't actually change anything. My hope is he'll stop doing it, because it's not fair to the employees. If he thinks there's problems, he should report them to the supervisor, and that's it. The employees have rights related to that. And I don't know what else to do as a board, but for us to take no action when this continues to happen, and it's very clear that there's a problem and that the employees are reporting it, it's got to stop. And that's all I have to say.
Any other questions or comments? Clerk Newbeck?
I think it's a sad day for Independence Township that we're even having this on the agenda. It's unfortunate. I also think it's a little ironic that we're sort of discussing behavior of a trustee about a trustee who discusses behaviors of employees. And it's sort of, circling back. I wish that we could be better than this. I know that we can be better than this, and the behavior continues. It's been pointed out. It's unfortunate. I wish that it wasn't so. I wish that we weren't discussing this. Paul is completely correct. It does not affect just the one employee or the two employees or and it could be any of us that have a beef or something with someone else. It's a ripple effect, and the morale at the township is felt on many different levels, but we take it back as the township board to the employees, especially the three, Supervisor File, Treasurer Brown, and myself. We're there day in and day out with the employees. And I just think you treat others as you want to be treated. And again, it's just very unfortunate that we're in this situation. I wish that there can be some reflection done and just things change, because we want to be better as a whole. And we're not great as ourselves. We're better because we're together as the seven of us. And again, it's just unfortunate. But I do have a question about the procedure for Nancy, if she can answer that as a follow-up to my. Is there any other process other than this that can be taken? And second part of that question is, if we were not to add, trying to see where the supervisor, whatever his position in this is, if we were just to censure Trustee Morocco, and it had nothing to do with the supervisor's involvement other than his thoughts on the censure, his vote on the censure, where would that go? What would we do with that? What's the end result? Or is it just put in a file, noted in minutes? I don't know what we're getting, what we're trying to, our ultimate goal is, other than to change behavior.
Sure, so a few points. A sanction and a censure are two different things, right? A sanction is a removal of a right, a removal of a privilege. That is not what the proposed action is here. The censure is a collective statement that says we are disappointed, that we do not approve of, we do not support certain conducts or behaviors. The township has employee policies that provide employees with rights and mechanisms on how to issue and make complaints and how those processes are handled. When those are addressed to other employees, say a department head, a director, they are also subject then to the rules that define those employees. However, elected officials are not subject to those standards. This board would approve those handbooks. They would say this is the way that we want to handle those issues, but they themselves are not held exactly and strictly accountable to those same policies and procedures. So the different mechanisms can really vary to get to the point of your question. It could be something as we're having a private conversation that says this is no longer acceptable and we need you to stop, and it never becomes part of the public light. It could be the board adopting certain policies that are expected and built within board policies that then have provisions for enforcing certain decorum issues and things like that. But ultimately, when it matters for elected officials, what really it comes down to is you are accountable to the electorate, to the voters, and they have the ultimate recourse if they feel something is egregious to pursue a recall or some other more drastic or substantive action like that. But internally, the board is really limited to saying, employee, we hear you. We're limited in our opportunities to take any type of specific action. So if we are in agreement that that conduct is outside of what the expectations are within the township, then we have collectively determined that we would like to publicly censure and promote. It does become a resolution. It becomes a part of the file. It's subject to FOIA, but there's no per se personnel file that it's going to go into. There's no union contract that's going to say in 2 years this goes away. There is nothing like that. Levels of misconduct as to what has been described would certainly not fall within other levels of recourse, which would be egregious or criminal types of activities that would then be presented to a governing body. A discriminatory action, let's say. That's my favorite topic, a discriminatory action that violated a protected class. Those could be submitted to the Michigan Department of Civil Rights. That's not what has been presented as an issue here. Violations of FOIA, those would be handled in a circuit court. Violations of the Open Meetings Act, those you might talk about with the prosecutor, you might talk about with the Attorney General's office. But when we're talking about misconduct and how we expect people to behave within the workplace and communicate with each other and gain access, the supervisor is authorized under the statute and the rules to say, this is what the expectations are going to be, this is when people can have certain access to certain areas, and that is certainly within his authority. In violation of those acts would then be subject to the board determining whether they felt that amounted to misconduct that required some level of censure, whether that was through a resolution, which is what is presented to you tonight, or whether that was through directing a board member to have a private conversation and set new expectations and see what happened next. It's a gamut of what you could do. So, long story long, there are many, many things that you could do, but the formal censure process is the main avenue.
Quick follow-up to that, then clarify that the supervisor who is director of personnel is a trustee or a fellow board member considered personnel under a supervisor.
As a supervisor, he is an elected official and with the statutory authority to manage personnel and the effective operations of all departments. So while he operates in a full-time capacity in the same manner that the clerk and the treasurer do, he is especially charged with additional duties related to personnel administration and overall department operations.
So department operations meaning the township board is what I'm saying.
Not meaning the department board.
That's what I'm asking you.
I apologize.
That's
I'm sorry.
okay.
I
That's
misunderstood.
all right.
Meaning the activity within the township amongst the employees and ensuring that those policies and procedures
Sure.
and conduct
Okay.
expectations are kept. And if I could also address the voting portion that was raised, this is not, a censure does not strip Trustee Morocco of his right to vote. Under the Michigan law, he would actually be encouraged to vote. If this were related to some type of financial or pecuniary issue, then that would be a different story. But just because there's a personal involvement with it, he is not expected to excuse or abstain. He would actually be encouraged to vote in the same way that you would vote if you wanted to. If you yourself were picking a chairperson for a committee, you could still vote for yourself. You wouldn't recuse yourself. So same type of thing there.
Other questions? Okay, let me
I guess I
ask-
just
you asked
had-
one first, right? Because you've already addressed it. I haven't addressed yet, so let me go
Terry
first.
had her hand up too earlier.
Oh, yes. Okay. You talked about a lot of different things that could happen. How long has this issue been going on in the township?
To our knowledge, there have been instances that have been addressed or raised to our attention that I am personally aware of since 2024. Again, in 2025, an issue was raised, and then most recently in 2026.
So this has been going on for a while?
To my knowledge, there have been
At least that
concerns
part.
related, yes.
Okay. Trustee Terry, do you have a, now Matthew, do you have a question?
I was just gonna ask her to answer this gentleman's question, but she already did. As far as his voting rights, what a censure means, and it, yeah, she already
To
addressed that.
further clarify that though, and because everybody can always interpret things multiple ways.
Sure.
This, even if he was censured tonight, it would not preclude him or do anything to impact his ability as a trustee to continue to do his oversight statutory duties and to continue to be able to vote on any issues going forward, correct?
That is correct. He
Okay.
would be able to vote on this issue and any other issue
Yeah,
that came
okay.
before the board. And
I just wasn't sure which one you were
Yes.
asking. Okay. Treasurer Brown.
So just quickly, the board passes policies for our employees. And we expect the supervisor to enforce those policies. And I guess my question for you is, if an employee had had taken these same actions over this course of time, is it your professional opinion they'd still be employed here? Or, I mean, I don't know if that's something you can actually answer, but clearly they'd be violating a number of policies within our handbook, and that could lead to termination.
Well, I can't speculate as to whether they would be terminated or not, but what I can say is that the policy is very clear that just cause is required in order to implement discipline, and we do utilize a progressive discipline policy. So when a behavior occurs, we attempt to correct that behavior. The township's goal is to correct that behavior through conversation, verbal coaching, perhaps a written down verbal message that would then go to a written, then potentially up to a suspension, demotion, or termination. Obviously, I want to make very clear that whenever there is a suspension, termination level, employees are provided with an additional right under the law, under the Constitution of the United States and the state of Michigan, that provides them with due process. So before any decision is made, they are afforded an opportunity to provide their perspective on the situation. That does not apply to elected officials and higher level officials that may have an employment contract or appointee.
So that answers my question. The last thing I'll say is, I can't remember how many board meetings where the next day I have an employee in my office saying someone's got to do something. Why can't someone do something? And it's not the same employee every time. They're different employees. They just can't believe that their board member is calling out employees because they know the rules. And they know we're not legally allowed to do that because the law's set up that way and they have rights. And I've pointed this out a number of times, and it just keeps happening. So I hope that the board will show the employees that we're going to hold ourselves to the same standard that we hold them to in the policy manuals that we've created.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I had a question.
Yes, sir.
So you said there were 3 complaints within the last, since '22, you said?
That I am aware of that have
Okay.
been brought to my attention that I have
Okay.
provided an opinion related to. I'm aware of 3 different times it's been escalated to our office, yes.
Was it the same employee?
I'm not aware of all of the employees that were involved. Our office was not given information on specific employees related to the most recent incidents. I do know that at least one employee has complained more than one time, but I am not aware of the exact employees that voiced concerns in the most recent incidents.
Okay. I'm just, the reason I ask is we have very little information on this other than the agenda item description. We don't have any names. I don't have, not that I would reveal them, but still, I have a picture of Sam. That's all I got. I don't have any policies in this. I don't have anything that was violated, and that's why I asked. So just trying to get some more information. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other? Did you want to?
Yeah, I want to respond, but I want to let everybody have their chance, so I know what I'm responding to. I think that's fair enough. So I did have
Trustee Marak.
I do have a statement. I do want to say that I'm going to read it so that it doesn't get crazy. I do want to say to Paul, yes, I do this for years and years and years, and that's because nobody does anything about the problem. So I do want to have a correction before I read my statement, that it is not illegal for me to say it. It's not recommended. It could have potential liability to the township, but there is nothing illegal about me calling out employees in public meetings. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me take, when you say illegal, is it criminal? No, it's not criminal. Is it appropriate? Does it follow the standards?
Frowned upon,
It's
for
not
sure.
to call out employees in a public meeting, yes.
Okay, good.
And it
Okay.
exposes the township to liability.
Right, and I'm aware of that, so I just want to make that clear. I'm going to read my statement. It's got nobody's names in it, doesn't specifically, other than yours maybe, but it doesn't have anything else involved in it, and I want to give a little backstory, because this is it's a pretty significant thing, and that's the reason why I wanted to Mayfred, because it has a lot more accusations and a lot more specifics in it than the summary did, and I want to make sure that everybody's clear on what I'm being accused of, because it's now part of the record. So, first, I want to thank the supervisor. Yes, okay, can you hear me now? I'd like to first thank the supervisor for the opportunity to once again address his failures overseeing the business of the township. Secondly, I don't have the luxury you all do to ignore the failures of the supervisor and past supervisors in regard to the township's personnel and department outcomes. I have a commitment and responsibility to the residents to provide oversight, and sometimes oversight is less than pleasant, especially for individuals who I believe have failed at their responsibilities. I would like to address the allegations the supervisor is making that question my reputation and behavior. He uses some pretty powerful words to describe my interfacing with the employees. I don't need to defend myself, and I'm not going to apologize to the employees because they know that this is not being truthful in how they've been treated. I want only what's best for the township, and the supervisor and full-time officials have turned their backs on what's going on. I have only ever criticized the performance and outcomes of public meetings or with supervisors because we have had such poor leadership in years. Not surprising when the head of personnel does not know the job of the person that I'm referring to. How many lawsuits do we have to have going, and how much more damage needs to occur before it stops? To say that someone feels threatened, bullied, and has personal safety concerns, I will need a lot more credible proof than the supervisor's word. I have a right to face my accuser, and you need to produce one if you can. These are very slanderous statements. I have a business and reputation in this community that you are trying to destroy because you feel threatened by me uncovering what's going on, and I believe that it's the supervisor that feels threatened. I believe that the supervisor is the one who creates a hostile workplace from my discussions with employees. He regularly has employees confirm publicly that nothing is wrong, parades them in front of the board to defend his actions, and once he was caught playing favoritism to his neighbor on an ordinance issue, he continually forcing the staff to say they don't need anything or anyone that the supervisor doesn't approve of. I was told once by the supervisor when asked, why wouldn't you release a bad employee? And he stated that he would prefer to have them quit, which we have already seen. I believe that when the supervisor publicly teamed me up with a known employee I have issues with, he knew it would create animosity. The calls I got from residents and staff asking what was going on was expected, as the consensus was the same. It was a deliberate action by the supervisor to stir up trouble. He continued to try to push the issue after I repeatedly told him I would not be put in that situation. He had it printed again on tonight's MAIF for the CIP presentation, which I sent an email and requested it be removed, which he did just before it was released. I am not doing the dirty work for the supervisor, even if it's needed. I have tolerated poor management and complacent elected officials for years, and I'm not going to sit back and have more damage done to the township because the board is lazy or whatever the supervisor we have has no knowledge of the business of the township. I don't care what the board thinks of my behavior. I answer to the residents. You're asking this board to allow you to be authorized to take appropriate actions against me. In what way, I would ask. Nothing you do will prevent me from doing my statutory duties. And I can tell you, I'm just getting started dealing with the failures of the full-time officials. Thank you.
As for point of information, my neighbor doesn't own the business or doesn't own the sign, so he had nothing to do with it. So, and I know that's what you're talking about. So there was nothing there. At this point in time, I would like to make the motion to sanction trustee Sam Morocco for behavior in the Independence Township workplace which undermines in positive workplace culture and could be considered intimidating to township employees, and authorize the township supervisor to take appropriate actions towards trustee Morocco to protect township employees from such behavior in the future.
Support.
Okay. Can I get a roll call, please, Madam Clerk?
Trustee Morocco.
Yes.
Trustee Nalamathu.
Yes.
Supervisor File.
Yes.
Clerk Newbeck, yes. Treasurer Brown.
Yes.
Trustee Hayward.
No.
Motion carried.
Motion carried. All right, the next agenda item is going to be the trustees facility access discussion. This again is another MAIF that's been brought forward. This time it was brought forward by trustee Morocco. Discussion involves several competing considerations including facility security, operational effectiveness, employee workplace expectations, oversight, responsibility, and the board's governance to rule. The purpose of tonight's discussion is to evaluate the current access framework, consider any concerns that have been raised, and determine whether additional clarification or policy direction is appropriate. The board should be focused on identifying the approach that best serves the township operations, governance, and security interests. With that, I turn it over to Trustee Morocco to give the opening on his MAFE.
Trustee Hayward, do you want to start?
Oh, I'm sorry, Hayward to.
Yeah, so, no, that's fine. I just, we kind of already discussed it. The reason being is that, I guess because of your feelings towards whatever, I first like to say it is sad that we have to discuss this stuff, all of it. The fact that, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's just sad that we have to discuss this stuff, that, I feel like I'm treated like, all of a sudden, we don't have access to the building like we did. Well, we have it to this building and that's it. I get why. I guess you have to treat everybody equally. I've done nothing wrong, yet I get my access pulled. And it was interesting, we received a memo. I'm not sure why that memo went into the township board member only folder. It's public information, it can be FOIA'd. And it was interesting because I saw in the opinion from our last agenda item that there was a policy that was sent out last year and none of the trustees were informed on it.
Yes, sir.
No. We can pull it up and look at it. I can tell you who was informed. None of the part-time trustees. Carrie was, Paul was, and it was the thing that you had mentioned in the second memo regarding our access. You said it was piggybacking off of what you had released last year. I looked for it, I couldn't find it, and it was included in the information that you had sent the attorney, that one from last year, and I didn't see anywhere where we were contacted on that at all, that policy. So if you want to go ahead and, it's in the packet from the opinion that we received on the first one. So that's a little concern. I mean, I wish I would have been at least informed on that one first. We weren't. And essentially, I mean, the biggest reason is because I feel like that, I guess kind of like treated like children, and that we're all in trouble for the actions of what you believe is one. And I'll let you go ahead and speak on it, because I'm sure I know you have an opinion on it. So that's really much all I have to say about it. I just, I think I work hard for these people. I have people out in this audience, they know. I work hard for them.
You bet.
I don't come up here, I don't disrespect anybody. I've come to offices, and for me to have all this stuff pulled from me, and I'll tell you what, I never use my access, but to have it pulled from me is insulting. I don't know. That's all.
Trustee now, Matthew.
I don't have a problem with it if the employees feel threatened by somebody. And if you need access, all it is a phone call. If you want to talk to somebody here, make an appointment, call that employee, they'll let you in. Doesn't bother me at all.
Trustee Morocco.
I'm going to speak to that because I don't think Terry understands what some of us trustees do in the township, so I want to clarify that. I think this is as ridiculous as the last MAFE. That's why I voted for it, because it means nothing to me whether they appreciate what I'm doing or not, because I'm working for the residents. But so just to be clear, I sit on this township board. I sit on the planning commission. I'm on the DDA. I'm working with facilities maintenance to get all the buildings in the township brought up to code. I come to P2 meetings for the planning commission. I'm on the planning commission, and I have a full-time job. Okay, so when I come up to the township, I talk to many different department heads. I talk to different employees. I check with the ordinance department to see where the status is on something that was complained to. I go in and see Carrie regularly and talk to her about clerk stuff. I talk to Paul about property that the township owns. Okay, so oversight by appointment only to me just seems absolutely ridiculous. I'm not making phone calls. I'm not calling and making appointments, and I'm certainly not going to call and tell the supervisor what I'm talking about to everybody, because I'm here to provide oversight, okay? we had a situation where I got some information, found out some things. It didn't work out so well for the township. We had some meetings about it, okay? So now, all of a sudden, the card's turned off. As Trustee Hayward said, this policy was implemented in July 27th of last year. We just now I found that my card got turned off on May 20th. I came to a DDA meeting. There was nobody here. It was after 6 o'clock. I swiped my card, couldn't get in. Thank goodness there was one employee, I don't know who she was, coming out of the basement. I grabbed the door, got in, let the residents come in. I texted the supervisor, what's going on with the cards? He explained to me that there was a policy change in time of access and that would be addressed, okay? Then it did. We've had some, back and forth about some things, and then all of a sudden the whole thing is turned off. Knocking on doors, the picture thing, that was just a joke because he put one up about no dogs allowed, so I put one up about me no allowed. If that offends you, sorry about that for you. That is going to ruin your day. But policy's been in place for 100 years. Access is access. I can tell you that it's absolutely untrue that I have ever went off and created an unsafe environment. I never go in a private office without anybody. I'm standing in a common area, whether I'm on this side of the counter or that. I'm in between a bunch of cubicles. There's nothing going to change. You can make whatever policy you want. A director, a supervisor, I work with half the staff in the building. They're going to come in and let me in. If you want me to air public laundry out in the hallway, happy to do it. If you want me to yell from the thing, hey, are you in there? I'm happy to do it. I had to go to a board meeting upstairs with a consultant. We couldn't even get in. I had to get buzzed in. My mail is behind the door. This is all a bunch of crap. I don't care anything about it. You want to keep the card, swipe the card, do whatever you want with the card. It's irrelevant to me. I'm not changing my ways. I'm still going to keep an eye on the three of you as tight as I can. And I'm going to talk to employees whenever I feel like it, and I'm going to get all the information, and I'm going to bring it to the residents on their behalf of anything that I find out. So make a motion, I'll second it, whatever. Want me to stand in a parking lot, I'm good with that. That's all
So I
I
would
have
like
to
to
say.
make some comments here. First of all, it's funny that somebody tried to make it about my relationship with Sam. That is probably the furthest thing from the truth. And I say that because every one of those committees he just talked about being on, I appointed him. I asked him to join them. So the fact that he thinks I have something out against him is foolhardy. Second of all, if I did not like Sam so much, I would not have asked him to come over and do some construction work on my house. So and that was just in the last couple of weeks. So again, this is not about my perception of Sam. It's about the employee's perception of Sam. My job as the supervisor is to take care of the health, safety, and welfare of the employees. When the employees complain, and he has shown up in offices, he has reached around and unlocked doors that he didn't have access to, and does just walk into individuals' offices. Okay, so this is the only thing. Look, at the end of the day, there's not one member of this board that thinks that this has any teeth. It doesn't. The only teeth this has is public perception of the situation. There are going to be those who are going to say, geez, Chuck is just being malicious. Others are going to say, wow, it's about time that somebody calms Sam down. Hopefully he'll think about things. That's what this is, okay? It's not going to, do we think that this is going to change things dramatically? I hope so, but probably not. Because Sam sat here in his full glory of arrogance saying that he's not going to listen, he doesn't give a crap what the board thinks, he's going to do what he wants to do. That's the problem. Sam doesn't understand there is a line that he cannot cross as a trustee. A single individual trustee does not have the statutory authority from an oversight standpoint to initiate its own investigations. He works as the trustees. The trustees, plural, have the right to go through and do that. And when that has happened, when Sam is even asked, and he will not be able to say this otherwise unless he lies, that anytime he's asked for access, I have granted it and said, yeah, sure, no problem. And so from that standpoint, it gives the employees a chance to feel a little bit more secure. And I'm sorry if you feel like you don't do that. But again, if anybody who was sitting here for the first time listening to the way you described us as the board, why would they think anything different when you have even more influence or control over not control, but influence over an employee that you would not be coming at them and aggressively. And that's what you do. You're very passionate about what you try to achieve, and I believe you're the type of individual that will do everything they can, and you'll justify, the ends will justify the means. So, with that, I'm going to recommend that the policy, and for the door access thing too, by the way, we went through everybody, okay? And we went through, did I miss something?
Yeah, you didn't. I have public comments.
Did I miss public comments?
Yes, you did, sir.
Shit, we got carried away, so I apologize. Let's do the public comments.
Brian Posby, 6108 Lake Walden Drive. This topic is absolutely ludicrous. I'm embarrassed for this township and this board. Thankfully, there aren't a lot of people online, and I surely hope there aren't a lot of people watching this, because I'm embarrassed. And I think I'll stand up here for 5 minutes and waste your time, because you've wasted a lot of mine. I won't drop the microphone, I'll just hit it.
Okay.
Linda Billings, 6025 Cedar Bend Drive. I'm really shocked, and I do not believe there's any employee in this building that is afraid of Sam Morocco. I just don't believe it. I wrote a little statement here of support for Sam, but I'm also shocked that David Hayward, that you're limiting his access. He works 24/7 for this township. These two have been elected by residents of this community. And I feel like you're hanging them out to dry tonight, and I don't think it's right. The public has elected Trustee Morocco and Trustee Hayward to represent them and be their voice. I believe they both take that responsibility very seriously. I don't know the issues between Trustee Morocco and the employee, but maybe the employee should show more respect to Trustee Morocco. He was elected. The employee was not. They should have access to whatever they need and whomever they need to do their jobs. And I'm going to read what I had written earlier. This is about Trustee Morocco. I previously worked with Trustee Morocco when I was serving on the Planning Commission. I found him to be knowledgeable with vast insight to history and justification for various codes and districts within Independence Township. I appreciated his construction experience and eagle-eyed approach to site plans. He will always consider adjacent property owners and the impact or benefit to them as well as the petitioner. I feel certain that the reason he was reelected is that residents see his passion for the township and they appreciate it. Trustee Morocco does not leave you wondering where he stands on particular issues. I like that about him. I haven't always agreed with him, but I like to know where he stands. This board and this community will never all agree on any one issue, but I support collaboration, debate, and even heated exchange of ideas in order to resolve issues. The problems and issues this board will face will be better deciphered with 7 voices and opinions coming together as a team to reach a resolution. I appreciate Trustee Morocco and his voice and tenacity, and I will echo that for Trustee Hayward. I've been working with him on this stormwater issue, and he works 24/7. I mean, people should really appreciate the time that is required to do this job and to do it effectively.
My name is Rich Billings. I live at 6025 Cedar Bend Drive. And I've lived here only 12 years. I moved from Arlington, Texas here. And you don't have to watch too many of these sessions to realize that recently this has turned into a 4-3 board. You have Mr. File, who has his requests, his ideas, his philosophies, and things he wants. Right, wrong, or indifferent. The three that follow him boast always: Paul, Terry, and Carrie. You have three people, Tedder, Mr. Rocco, and David Hayward, that seem to sit back and say, let's do what's in the best interest of the citizens. That's what it appears to me after watching 2 or 3 years of this type of situation. There's a lot of issues here that need to be changed. You have employees that are not doing the job that they were hired to do. You have people who have fluffed off responsibilities, not checked on things, overdone other things. So I'm quite sure that Sam sees this, tries to change it, and others of you just say, let's just go along to get along. As a citizen, I think it's time that you guys all grow up, mature, and start acting like sophisticated people that run a very large township. Because right now, you are all falling severely short. Thank you for your time.
Luann, you know not to clap.
Joette Kuntz, 9740 Reese Road. I'm not in favor of your face on businesses. I think that was a little childish. That's from my teacher view. But Mr. Billings is right. You are a 4-3 board. Chuck, you run it like you're a CEO of a company, and you're not.
I am.
No, you are not.
Yes, I am.
Well, you may be a company somewhere else, but you are the Independence Township, and we, the voters, are your boss. We're all your boss. An election is what every election decides who's going to be here. Now, I know David Hayward. I mean, it's a 2-hour conversation when you talk to him because he's got so much information. I know Sam Morocco. I know Paul. And I know Carrie. I don't know you, Teresa, very well. I will tell you, though, you have just convinced me more that we need a superintendent, not a supervisor. Somebody that knows government, can run government, and would never have had these personnel problems because that would be their job. You have, for the first year, you said, well, I'm new on the job. Well, even this year you've said, well, I'm just getting to it. You do not know the jobs. I'm sure Carrie knows the job of the clerks and all her employees. I know Paul probably knows his employees, but there are many other people in here. No one can come in here and know those jobs and really evaluate them very well. We need a superintendent, somebody that runs the business. We need people who are representatives of the citizens, which you all are. But the employees need it. I mean, we all know what the employees talk about you. All of you, we know. I mean, we talk to them all the time. You're pretty, there's a fear, especially if you're a woman. There's a fear. Chuck, I mean, that's just the way it is. We need a superintendent, a professional person who knows how to run things. I'm sorry, you do not.
Any other public comments? Okay, yes, please.
Walter Kozarski, 9575 Hadley Road. Didn't plan on talking tonight, but I just wanted to step in here and say that this is just kind of surprising, but I've been part of this township for 30 years, maybe longer than some of you. I grew up here, went through high school here, middle school, all that. This is my community. I had a problem starting 6 years ago. I reached out to the township, got nothing. The employees that you're talking about, they didn't do anything. We got the runaround. They said one thing on email, one thing in person, and that wasn't the case. Finally reached out to Jim Tedder because my mom knew him from Clarkson schools. great guy, got me set up with other people, started communicating. Now I'm working with David Hayward. I've worked with Sam on other things too. And, you know, they're part-time, but the fact that you would limit them from doing, we've gotten more done for me and my neighbors with our issue, which is a whole nother thing, won't even get into that with the stormwater. More done in a couple weeks with getting Jim involved, and all of a sudden David taking this committee and doing something about it than I did in 6 years of emails and communications and everything with employees that had access, that are here every day, and these are now people that are doing something about it, and you want to limit their access even more, and they're here helping the residents. My neighbors are all happy that we're getting updates. Just today, we've got surveyors and people at the retention ponds doing things today. They had things out floating. We haven't had anything like that, as you know, what's happening. It's all because of the CIP plan that Chuck, you appointed David for, and David took this one on. So I just want to say that to limit their access to this building, I think, is ridiculous. Whether I like the people up there, I voted for them or didn't vote for them, regardless, they should have access to this building. They should have the resources, because to be honest, I have a great experience with David, Sam, and Jim actually getting back to me, texting me, calling me, emailing me, and getting responses for the residents, and we were the residents that needed help. Some of my neighbors have been here for 50 years, and they couldn't even get help, and now we are. So I really feel like they should not be limited to this building, and they need those resources, because like Belinda said, David seems like he works 24/7. I don't know how he does it. He's got another job, yet he's helping us and me and all my neighbors, and he keeps me updated all the time, and it's been a phenomenal experience. So I want to say thank you, David, but they need these resources. They need this building. They need access. So thank you.
Any other public comments? No, and I don't see anybody online. For point of information, the access was from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. at night, or 7 a.m. till 8 p.m. at night. So when we sit there and say they have full access to the facility, the building here, what they are restricted on is the ability to go into the areas where the employees are working. So that's the only thing that they got restricted on. Okay, with that, this was Sam's motion, or Maeve, so please feel free to make the motion.
No, I'm good. Dave, you want to make a motion?
Well,
yeah, I'm sorry.
And I want to point out too, I don't use my access to get into anywhere other than back where the conference room is where your offices are. And I do call and make appointments, and it really wasn't about the fact that, it's more the principle of losing it, I guess, because I wasn't using it. I was using it, like I said, to get in there, but all the other places I wasn't. But the fact that I lost it was more of the problem with it. And I would like to at least see then, maybe we need to have a room outside of where our mail goes, and like a trustee area or something for the 4 trustees that has a printer and has a way to get and do work, or something like that. But honestly, in the end of it though, or I guess, my question is, was it the act of one person that caused you to restrict everybody's access?
No, it was the health, safety, welfare for all employees. If you looked at that, there was 6 different categories we created for individuals based on their needs. So it wasn't just trustees. We went through and grouped everybody. So, I mean, again, it wasn't focused on just the trustee group. There was probably 5 groups that we created based on what we believe their needs were. We also sent out to all the directors, if your employee, if you need something, other access to that, please let us know. I think Clerk Newbeck reached out, and we instantly changed it, and it was accommodated. It's not, yeah, so, I mean, yes, there was multiple groups, and it did change.
So it kind of removes the trust in trustee, huh?
Pardon me?
I said it kind of removes the trust in trustee if we're not trusted to go to certain areas of the building. That's all I'm saying. So I'll just recommend that the policy for trustees' access to the facilities is equal to the full-time officials.
Support.
Can I get a roll call, please, Madam Clerk?
Comment.
Say what?
I want to make a comment.
We've already got the motion in play, though.
No, it's, you make the comment after the second, don't you?
He's asked for a vote.
Yeah, I mean, there are discussion after the motion's on the table.
Okay, I just want to make it clear that I still don't understand what the point of this is, because there is no standing at the counter or going in and talking privately with a building inspector or a director, if, as Chuck says, that every time I call I get access, I don't know what it is that this is achieving. If it makes all of you feel better, that I have to wait for them to open the door for me to go in, and I gotta ring the little bell so I can go in, and then Carrie's gonna let me in and talk to her, or Paul is, or one of the directors, I'm fine with it. It seems foolish and it's a wasted step, but it's not going to have any bearing on any communications, because it's just, we're gonna talk at the counter until they decide that we're gonna move inside to their office or to the area of cubicles. So, it's irrelevant to me, whatever, how you guys vote. Well, you can take the roll call if you want.
Okay. Can I roll call, please, Madam Clerk?
Trustee Malamatu.
So I gotta read it again.
So we're saying if you vote no on this, you're saying that we're going to leave the key card access
Okay.
based on the current situation. If you vote yes, then we're changing the trustees' access to equal the full-time officials.
Supervisor File.
No.
Clerk Newbeck, yes. Treasurer Brown.
No.
Trustee Hayward.
Yes.
Trustee Morocco.
Yes.
Motion failed for lack of support.
Next on the agenda item is, there isn't any closed sessions, there isn't anything or for communication of future agenda items, township parks renovations, updates, building activity, Independence Township, May 26th, building activity, City of the Village of Clarkston, May 26th, Oakland County Sheriff's Office, May 26th, Planning Commission, March 12th, 26th, Planning Commission, March 14th, 2026, Downtown Development Authority, April 15th, 26th, Downtown Development Authority, May 20th, 26th, and Open Space Advisory Committee. Any parting board comments?
Yes.
Trustee Now.
I'd just like to put it out there then, if people don't believe what happened, whatever employees are out there that have issues, just start documenting them, date, time, what happened. And second of all, for a lot of people who spoke up, calling us a 4-3 board now, I thought years ago that's what you wanted, because in the past, prior to that, we were all Pat's puppets when we were all in agreement. So I guess you got what you voted for, so you can't be angry at it.
Yeah, you're his puppet now.
Well, so voting, losing elections and winning elections have consequences. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Well, I had a question.
sorry.
I had a question for Dan.
This is the comment section, but
I just want clarification. So the policy that we just got copies of from July of 26 or 25 of limited access is now the policy.
Yes, the motion failed. So the attempt to change the policy to equate trustee access to full-time officials failed, so there's no change in the policy that was implemented by the supervisor.
And he has the sole authority to implement restricted
Yes.
policy to elected officials?
Yes.
Okay. There you go, you got it.
So even if the board had voted to do something different, his statutory authority, if he's got good reason, could he continue to hold
Well,
it?
yeah, I think, well, look at the opinion. There's an opinion with regard to that cites, it's not clear.
I'll
Yeah,
read it again.
It's not clear. My interpretation is that the board adopts a policy, that's different. The supervisor has implemented a policy, and that's what stands as of tonight.
can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
Move to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.